Ace. On the screen of a projector, Luffy was covered with scars all over his body, knelt on his knees, holding Ace's body, feeling extremely sad, and lost consciousness with his head raised. The boy standing in front of the projector is also called Ace, but he is not the Fire Fist Ace in One Piece, but an ordinary white-collar worker in Washaw. As an orphan, he was admitted to university through his own efforts, and found a normal job with a modest income, but he could live on. Over the years, the unchanging life may have extinguished the blood in his heart, but like thousands of pirate fans, every time he watches One Piece, he sees the crying of Luffy and the death of Fire Fist Ace in the video. Still can't hold back the tears. Today Ace obeyed the arrangement of the company, cosplaying Xiao Yan from Fighting the Sky, came to the comic exhibition held by the company, and happened to see a video of the war on the top of pirates being played on a booth, and he couldn't move anymore. Unknowingly, I watched it for more than half an hour, and when the video stopped, Ace touched the Xuanzhong ruler in his hand, wiped his tears secretly, and said through gritted teeth, "If I were in the world of One Piece, dear Ace, you must screw the Red Dog's head off." As soon as the voice fell, 4 words suddenly sounded in Ace's mind. "As you wish." Before he could react, his vision went dark and he passed out. In the darkness, the memory of Fire Fist Ace kept repeating in his mind, playing in a loop like a movie. Constantly feeling the happiness and pain in the sound of Fire Fist Ace, unknowingly, the souls of the two Aces gradually merged together. In the middle of the monstrous fire, there was an open space the size of a basketball court. A child covered in blood and scars suddenly opened his eyes. He subconsciously wanted to sit up, but the sharp pain came from his fingertips, making him realize that he could no longer move. Green-headed monster. With me here, don't even try to kill Ace. Seeing a stout woman in front of him holding a big axe in front of him, Ace suddenly regained consciousness. How is this going? I'm not at the Comic-Con, who is that voice? Staring at the woman in front of him, he looked, and suddenly the memories in his mind flooded out. Dayton. This is the bandit woman who raised Fire Fist Ace and Luffy in One Piece. Hearing Ace's voice, Dayton quickly turned his head. Only then did Ace realize that the woman had already had more than a dozen stab wounds on her body, bleeding profusely, and her complexion was extremely pale. But Dayton still squeezed out a smile, and said with a slightly trembling voice, "Ace, don't be afraid. I will definitely kill the green-headed monster Lan Zhong and take you back." Swish. Ace shrank his pupils, looked at the vicious pirate wearing the captain's cloak in front of Dayton, and finally remembered what time it is and where he is. It was 12 years ago in the era of great pirates, 10 years before Luffy went to sea. In the kingdom of Goa, the Sapphire Pirates set fire to the terminal of the uncertain object. After the fire broke out, in order to protect Luffy and let him leave safely, Ace and his adoptive mother Dayton risked their lives to block the captain of the Sapphire Pirates, Blue Jam. Thinking of this, a wry smile appeared on his face. It turned out that he really became the Fire Fist Ace in that pirate world. Immediately, Ace's eyes flashed. Since he had a chance to do it all over again, he had to carry the original Ace's dream and friendship. The way forward. But reluctantly looked up and looked around. Now surrounded by flames, there is a vicious pirate on the opposite side, but he couldn't move, couldn't resist. Desperate. How to do? Ace was in severe pain and kept struggling to stand up. He didn't want to die when he first came to this world. Ha 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 ha. But at this moment, Blue Gem on the opposite side suddenly laughed. Obviously, because Brugum also couldn't escape the sea of fire. The tyrannical emotions in his heart surged out, his face was distorted, and he stared fiercely at the two in front of him. "Woman, are you making me laugh? Just rely on you, want to kill me?" After speaking, he raised his eyebrows and kicked Dayton. Dayton could only parry in a hurry. Boom. Dayton was not an opponent of Brugum in the first place, and now he was seriously injured, so he had no power to fight back. He was kicked flying all of a sudden, knocking over a pile of rubbish behind him. "A woman and a kid want to challenge me." Brugum licked the blade in his hand, raised the corners of his mouth, revealing a mouthful of jagged teeth, and walked towards Ace step by step. Stepping on Ace's body, Brugum exposed the blue veins on his forehead, and cursed, "Ace, smelly brat, don't stay at home to breastfeed, and come to block your master Brugum's way. Now that I live too, it's over, don't think about dying so easily." Glaring, Brugum raised the samurai sword in his hand, and slashed at Ace's left leg, obviously wanting to torture Ace to death. The samurai sword waving brought a gust of wind, and Ace was stunned for a moment. If the knife hits, the road to the strong that has not yet begun in his mind will only be left as a fantasy. Dying. Died so unexplainably. That is, at the moment when Ace's thought flashed, with a whoosh, a person suddenly appeared in front of Ace, Dayton. Puff. The sound of the sword entering the body reached Ace's ears, and in front of him, a burly figure firmly protected him. At this moment, Dayton in front of Ace didn't have the slightest look of pain on his face, but instead showed a gentleness and kindness. You must know that Dayton usually shouts at Ace and Luffy, and on the surface he looks very unwilling to raise them, but at this moment he reveals his true feelings in his heart. Yes. I'm sorry, I failed. To protect you well. Blood flowed from Dayton's mouth, but she still smiled. Can I call you son? Ace froze for a moment, looking at Dayton's pale face. Memories of the original Fire Fist Ace kept pouring out, and his lonely life seemed to have no affection from his parents. But what is this? Isn't this family affection? Mom. Dayton's blood smeared Ace's face, mixed with Ace's tears. Hearing this sentence, Dayton showed a happy smile on his face, but that rough face looked extremely beautiful in Ace's eyes. But right now. Boom. Blue Gem pulled out his samurai sword and kicked the unconscious Dayton aside with a vicious smile on his face. What a touching picture. I'm going to cry. He raised the knife again, with an extremely ugly expression on his face, and aimed at Dayton's neck next to him. Don't worry. In order to keep your mother and child together forever, I will send you to see her after I hack this ugly woman to death. Call. With a cold light on the blade, it slashed at Dayton's neck in an instant. Do not. Ace's eyes were bloodshot, his head was buzzing constantly, and he was struggling to rush forward, but it seemed it was too late. He had never hated a person so much before, anger, hatred, mixed in his mind. The strong desire seemed to break through a shackle in Ace's mind, and a buzzing sound suddenly came out of Ace's mind, and everything around him suddenly stopped under this sound. The sea of fire stopped jumping, the blood stopped flowing, and the ferocious expression also paused on Brugem's face. And a voice without any emotion sounded out of thin air in Ace's mind like this. You want power? It was the voice that brought me to the world of One Piece. Seeing that the blade in front of him was only 1 foot away from Dayton's neck, and the cold light seemed to have touched her skin, Ace had no time to think deeply. He was afraid that the knife would cut it off in the next moment, and he just wanted to save the mother in front of him immediately. Yes. I want. Ace growled hoarsely. Welcome to the alien fire system. Ace was also suspended in place at this moment, unable to move, but after the voice came out, his consciousness suddenly retracted and rushed into the depths of his mind. When his consciousness became clear again, Ace found himself in a closed space with an empty hall in front of him. Different fire system? Different fire? Could it be those special flames collected by Xiao Yan in Dobreak's sphere? Those are the extremely domineering emperors in the fire formed by chance in the heaven and earth over millions of years. There was a faint mist in the depths of the hall in front of me, and there were some huge stone pillars rising from the ground indistinctly, and the tops of the stone pillars faintly transmitted various colors of flames, constantly flickering. And in the center of the hall, there is a weapon that Ace is very familiar with floating. Mysterious ruler. At this moment, the mysterious ruler was covered with cracks, but Ace didn't bother to observe carefully, because the indifferent voice came into his ears again. Currently the system is under activation protection, and the host will be 10 meters away from the host, and the space will be frozen for 10 seconds. Hearing this, Ace felt even more anxious, because the clear countdown had sounded. 0.98. He hastened to shout, "Power! Give it to me quickly." As if feeling Ace's anxious mood, this time the system no longer spoke out word by word, but transmitted the relevant information of the system into Ace's mind in an instant. The first is Ace's physical attributes. There is only one column, but it is simple. Physical fitness, school, 2, gift host novice props. Before Ace could understand and digest the following information, 3 clusters of light suddenly appeared in front of Ace, namely a cheat book, a Chinese-style broad-backed broadsword, and a purple flame. Worried about Dayton outside, Ace's eyes were bloodshot, and he immediately closed the cheat book with his backhand, grabbed the big knife, and was about to touch the flame. But the system's prompt sound came into Ace's head again. Have you figured it out? Although this flame is a gift from the system, it is just a beast fire that is lower in quality than a different fire, but it still requires school-level strength to absorb it safely. Your current physical condition is abnormal. If you forcibly absorb it now, not only you his physique will plummet after this, and he will continue to feel the pain of the flames burning his body. Ace knew what the voice said was right. The information just passed into his mind had let him know that the system divided the strength of Pirate World into soldier level, school level, major general, lieutenant general, quasi-general, general, and handsome. The physical strength is also divided in the same way. Ace has been exercising since he was a child, and now he is 10 years old, and his physical strength has reached the level of entering school. Normally, it is more than enough to absorb this beast fire. However, he had already been seriously injured in the face of Brugem, who was already strong at the school level, and if he forcibly absorbed the flames now, he would definitely be injured more and more in the future. However, Ace knows that no matter whether it is cheats or big swords, there is no way to greatly improve his strength immediately. In the world of pirates, eating a fruit that can control flames can instantly kill characters below the Major General. So as long as he absorbs the purple fire, Ace knows that he can definitely deal with Blue Gem. He has no time to think about those sequelae. If he doesn't make a breakthrough now, when the countdown is over, he will have no time to save Dayton, who is not far away. The mother who just had it is gone. Thinking of this, Ace didn't hesitate anymore. He gritted his teeth, and with a sudden force on his hand, he crushed the last ball of light in front of him. Call. The purple flame exploded in an instant, rushing into Ace's body along the palm of his hand, and there was an unspeakable pain, but he still gritted his teeth and endured it. A trace of flames emerged from Ace's wound, and it seemed that he would be burned to ashes in the next second. Hey, at this time, the system seemed to not want Ace to be burned to death, and a helpless sigh came from the center of the hall. Then a ray of black energy emerged from the Xuanzhong ruler in the center of the hall, and then floated into Ace's body. This ray of energy is miraculous, and the tyrannical flames suddenly quieted down, gradually being able to be controlled by Ace. But the Xuanzhong ruler in the middle of the hall, which was already covered with cracks, seems to have added 2 new cracks because of the loss of that ray of energy. Half a second later, Ace opened his eyes, and there seemed to be 2 purple flames dancing in his eyes. Feeling the turbulent energy in his body, Ace couldn't help stretching out his hand and pointing forward. A ray of purple flames suddenly lit up 1 meter in front of him, and a terrifying temperature hit his face. He can be sure that people below the Major General level will have no power to resist under the flames. But the tearing pain in his body told Ace that the improved strength at this moment was only temporary. Shaking his head, Ace's eyes remained firm, because during the time when his strength increased, it was enough for him to deal with Blue Gem. 3, 2, 1 inch. The moment the countdown ended, Ace's consciousness returned instantly, and everything around him moved again. Seeing the ferocious smile on Brugem's face when he swung the knife not far away, Ace's eyes shone coldly, and he raised his hand and pointed at Brugem's arm without hesitation. Call. The bewitching purple fire leapt out following Ace's consciousness, and burned on Brugem's arm out of thin air. Ah! There was a shrill scream, and Brugem's arm holding the knife was instantly scorched black by the purple fire, and the samurai sword fell to the ground with a clang. Holding the big knife, Ace immediately rushed forward to block Dayton, glanced at the screaming Brugem with cold eyes, and then hurriedly half-kneeled to check Dayton's body. After finding that Dayton's life was not in danger for the time being, he let out a long breath. Finally caught up. Putting Dayton down gently, Ace stood up again. Swish. Ace turned around suddenly, with his right hand raised beside him. A fiery purple flame danced quietly in his palm. Then, he walked towards Blue Gem step by step. No. Impossible. Looking in horror at Ace, who was getting closer, Brugem sat on the ground all of a sudden, kicking his legs, and kept stepping back. The unknown is the scariest thing, and in this remote country, few people know the existence of devil fruits. Even if they know, with their poor imagination, they can't imagine that someone can have the terrifying power to control the flames. In the eyes of Brugem, the little devil who was just allowed to be kneaded by himself has now turned into a devil who can control the flames. Gazed by Ace's icy eyes, looking at the strange purple flame, Brugem's head was covered with cold sweat, and he had forgotten where the arrogant words just now were. Little devil. No, Master Ace, please spare me. I can follow you in the future, and the Sapphire Pirates can also be changed to the Ace Pirates. Thinking about the pain of the flames burning his arms just now, Brugem squeezing out a forced flattering smile, he kept begging for mercy. But there was no hesitation in Ace's eyes, and his steps were firm. He naturally would not have the slightest sympathy for this kind of villain who wants the life of himself and his relatives. You must know that half of his soul belongs to the Whitebeard Pirates. The captain of the second team, Fire Fist Ace, absolutely loves and hates. With you like this, you still dare to call yourself a strong man? Ace glanced contemptuously at the fearful Bruga on the ground, who was constantly backing away. Without hesitation, he raised his right hand lightly, and the purple sparks floated towards Bruga at a slow but firm speed. No. No. Brugem dodged desperately, but the flame finally landed on his body, and with a puff, his body was instantly ignited, turning into a purple torch. Without looking at the result at all, Ace turned around and gently carried Dayton on his back, and said softly, "Mom, I'll take you home." And behind him, Brugem's shrill screams also resounded through the entire terminal of uncertain objects at this moment. On a cliff by the sea in Goa Kingdom. Luffy, you come down first. Ace was in severe pain all over his body, but he couldn't speak the words of reprimand when he saw his silly brother hugging his neck and crying bitterly. After carrying Dayton back to the cottage, Ace's power disappeared. Ziwo also shrank into a ball and couldn't use it, and the sequelae caused severe pain in his meridians all over his body, like a flame burning. On the attribute panel, there is still only the column of physique, but it has become a dotted line. According to the system, this is already the best result. Because although Ace's physical strength has temporarily plummeted to the level of ordinary people, at least it is not a permanent injury. As long as he continues to exercise, he will be able to return to the school level sooner or later. But at this time, the sad news of Sabo's death came, and Luffy burst into tears as soon as he heard it. Although Ace, who has modern memory, has seen the plot behind One Piece, he knows that Sabo is not really dead, but was rescued by Luffy's father Monkey D. Long, and even became the second in command of the Revolutionary Army 10 years later. But he can't tell the current Luffy, because this matter is very important to Luffy's character shaping. He said he would go to sea with us. Luffy put down Ace, but lay on the ground all of a sudden, holding his hat tightly, crying loudly, shaking all over. Ace. You must not die. Hearing this, Ace's nose was sore, and the memories of his previous life flooded into his mind again. He couldn't imagine how much pain his own death caused Luffy to suffer during the Top War. Wiping away the tears swirling in his eyes secretly, Ace punched Luffy's head hard. Luffy. Listen to me, I will never die. After saying this, Ace helped Luffy up, wiped away his tears, and asked with a serious expression, Luffy, do you believe in brother? Okay. Sucking his nose hard, Luffy nodded fiercely. Luffy. This time I will never die again. Ace emphasized again, Sabo's pursuit is freedom, we drank the sworn wine. No matter what choice I make in the future, or what identity I am, you are mine brother. What I want is freedom, too. Luffy seemed to understand half understood, but he kept nodding. However, this time I have learned one thing. If we are not strong enough, whether it is freedom or brothers, everything we cherish will be easily taken away. Having said that, Ace's eyes became firmer again, as if he had made a decision. He took a deep breath and said, Brother, if you want to be free, become stronger. Go after it bravely. Your future will be up to me. Convoy. Luffy bit his lips tightly, holding back tears, and seemed to have made up his mind. A strong heart gradually sprouted. Go. Go home, my lovely grandchildren. Come out and welcome your grandpa. Ha 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 ha. Ace and Luffy, who were eating meat, suddenly trembled when they heard this voice, and almost choked on the meat. Especially Luffy, who turned his head and was about to jump out of the window. But just as he was halfway through the jump, a big palm-like hand grabbed his neck. Stinky boy. My grandfather is here, what is your attitude? Outside the door is Luffy's grandfather, naval hero, Lieutenant General Garp. At this moment, he was staring at Luffy in his hand angrily, and punched him on the head. Boom. Ah, pain. A big lump suddenly bulged on Luffy's head, and he screamed for pain while covering his head. On the other side, Ace's eyes suddenly lit up. Grandpa Garp's fist was surrounded by domineering, which could hurt Luffy who ate the rubber fruit. Do you still dare to treat Grandpa like this? Garp seemed to be still angry, and raised his fist again. I'm sorry. Luffy leaned his neck back hard, his neck stretched a little, he was really afraid of his grandpa. Ace on the one side wanted to laugh. Luffy was not afraid of anything, only afraid of the iron fist that Grandpa loved. Throwing Luffy back to the dining table, Garp dusted off his floral shirt, picked up a large piece of meat, sat cross-legged on the ground, and nodded, and said casually, the training base of the Navy headquarters has recently recruited students. I'll send you both over there. I'm not going, I'm the man who wants to become the One Piece king. Luffy clutched the bag on his head, tears were still hanging from the corners of his eyes, but he was as stubborn as ever on this matter. Sign up for me. Ace's calm voice came over. You two brats. I'm looking for a beating again. Garp's anger surged again, and he raised his fist to beat Luffy and Ace again, but he suddenly realized that Ace didn't refuse this time. You say it again? Garp was stunned, but Ace didn't expect to be a pirate anymore. Ace, you're not going to sea. Luffy on the other side was even more anxious. This foodie even threw away all the meat in his hand. Taking a deep breath, Ace pulled Luffy aside first, and said with deep eyes, remember what I said to you last time. We need to become stronger. I have not forgotten my dream, and you will always be mine younger brother. Luffy didn't quite understand, but thinking of the previous conversation on the cliff, he nodded and replied, okay, Ace. I still want to be One Piece, but you will always be my brother. Hearing what Luffy said, Ace laughed, turned to Garp and said, Grandpa, sign up for me, I want to join the Navy. This time Garp heard it clearly, and immediately let out a burst of hearty laughter. That's right. You will definitely be the strongest sailors in the future. I want to be the Pirate King. Garp was laughing happily, when suddenly Luffy's voice came out again. He choked suddenly, furious, clenched his fists and beat Luffy again. On the other hand, Ace ignored the daily nonsense of the grandpa and grandson, but fell into thinking. He made the decision to join the Navy after deliberation. If he continued the pace of development in his previous life, he would still be doomed 10 years later. Besides, now that he is 10 years old, his strength has plummeted due to being forcibly incorporated into the Purple Beast Fire, and his physical strength has become only at the level of ordinary people. If he tries to start again by himself, it will definitely be too late. After thinking about it, only the Navy has a systematic training method that can quickly improve his strength, and in his previous life, he only came into contact with domineering after entering the New World. This time he can learn domineering early in the Navy and learn from the Navy. Unique physical skills, make your own physical skills more powerful. That's why Ace wants to join the Navy for the time being. As a person who has integrated the soul of half of the modern people, he will not have any psychological burden on defecting from the Navy. Moreover, he can kill all the enemies who killed himself and his father in the previous life. Will not let go. Akainu? Black beard? You wait. There was a cold light in Ace's eyes. Luffy on one side has swollen into a pig's head at this moment, and Garp is also in a good mood after cleaning up Luffy, waved to Ace and said, "Ace, I will take you away now. Ha 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 ha, this is my good grandson." After bidding farewell to Dayton, who was still recuperating, Ace and Garp set foot on the warship parked in the port together. This warship is indeed imposing, as tall as a 6-story building, with a row of ferocious cannon muzzles on both sides of the hull, as if it would send roaring flames at the enemy at any time, but there is a pug-shaped bow on the bow. It really ruins the atmosphere. And Garp is obviously very satisfied with this look, and hopes that Ace will work harder in the Navy, so he proudly points to the dog-headed bow on the warship and seduces Ace. "Did you see that sign? This is your grandfather's unique sign. In other words, this warship is completely under my command. As long as you work hard, you can apply for a small warship of your own when you have the rank of Major General. Although it is not as big as the medium-sized ship like Grandpa, you can still set off alone to deal with the nasty pirates." Oh? Ace's heart moved, and he felt a little funny. Isn't this equivalent to using a bus for private use? Then can the general have a giant warship? Hey, not bad. Garp saw that Ace seemed to be very interested, and he was not worried that he was so ambitious. Only by having an ideal first can he have a chance to realize it. Now there are only 3 generals in the Navy, each with a huge warship. I hope you can grab one. Ha 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 ha. Garp was so relieved, he laughed heartily, and then waved violently to the sailors on board, ordered, "Let's go." Goal, the Windless Belt Naval Training Base. The scenery on the sea is beautiful, but Ace's desire to become stronger is even more urgent. After watching it for a while, he went back to his room to exercise. 1, 2, 3, 30, 31. Gradually, Ace's face began to turn red, and the sweat continued to flow, but he still persisted until his arms trembled, and he fell to the ground with a plop. Turning over and panting violently, looking at the ceiling helplessly, Ace cursed in his heart. This is less than 300 push-ups. Even a 7-year-old Luffy can easily do more than 100 push-ups. With super strength, it should be possible to make hundreds of them bigger. Although the system says that his body will recover sooner or later, it may take a year or 2. I can't waste so much time, I have to think of a way. The room on the boat was very small, and on the wall on one side was the wide-backed broadsword presented by the alien fire system. Looking at this broadsword, Ace suddenly thought, didn't he still have a cheat book presented by the system? As soon as the idea came, the information of the cheats flooded into Ace's mind. The essence of spiritual fire. After digesting the information in his mind for a while, Ace's eyes lit up. The spirit fire essence body Ju is not a fantasy technique for cultivating true chi and fighting chi, but it is very suitable for Ace in the world of One Piece. The formula is divided into 2 parts, each of which is integrated but complements each other. The first part is divided into 9 levels, and the content is to use various spiritual fires. The better the quality of the flame, the better the effect, and the same flame, the higher the magic formula, the effect will be doubled. And the second part is the auxiliary, running the spirit fire pure body method to melt the spirit fire in the body into the muscles and bones, and burst out. Within an hour, depending on the level of cultivation, you can exert several times your own ability. In other words, if Ace cultivates the formula to the 9th level, he can exert 10 times his strength. This is so perverted. Of course, after this hour, he will also be weak for a period of time, and within 3 or 4 days, his strength will only be half of his original strength, or even only 50%. But this didn't really hurt him, because everything can be restored afterwards, and even the spiritual fire can temper his body and strengthen his physique by the way, which surprised Ace even more. Ace didn't hesitate anymore, immediately closed his eyes, sat down cross-legged, and began to practice according to the formula. In the next few days, apart from eating, sleeping and basic physical exercise, Ace was practicing the spiritual fire essence art. Finally, a week later, a stream of air was generated around the purple beast fire, and it pulled out strands of flame from the originally shrunken purple fire, gently tempering Ace's body muscles, making him feel warm all over. At the same time, Ace had a thought, and the attribute panel appeared in front of his eyes. Attributes. Physical fitness, school, 2 spiritual fire essence body art, the first level. Refining energy. 0/10. Obviously, it is not difficult to get started with this exercise, and Ace quickly practiced the first level, and he could feel the generation of pure energy in his body. However, the column of tempering energy has always been 0. Ace is not worried but happy at this time, because he can feel that the energy has not disappeared, but is first used to restore his previously overdrawn physical strength. In such a short period of time, although the column of physique is still a dotted line, Ace knows that the font has become clearer. According to this speed, in less than a month, he can return to his original physical strength, or even a step closer. Roar. Just when Ace was secretly rejoicing, there was a deafening beast roar from outside, followed by a violent shake in the room, and the big knives hanging on the wall fell down with a bang. It was inserted on the floor in front of Ace, only an inch away from his little brother, and he broke out in a cold sweat. The good brother almost died before he left. Pulling out his big knife, Ace rushed onto the deck. At this time, the deck was already full of sailors who were facing an enemy. Following the eyes of the sailors, Ace couldn't help but gasp. Sea Kings. This is too big. It turns out that the warship has entered the windless zone unknowingly, and in front of the warship, there is an extremely huge Sea King. This warship was originally as tall as a 6-story building, but the neck of the Sea King in front of the water is enough. It is twice as tall as a warship. Inadvertently, it can overwhelm the river and the sea, and the waves raised seem to overturn the warship. Want to escape. A sailor who was obviously a recruit swallowed his saliva, with fear in his eyes, and stammered. Ace was also extremely amazed by this strange creature, but he discovered some strange phenomena. There was no fear in the eyes of most sailors, and even the eyes of some veterans shone. What are you running away from? We're going to have an extra meal tonight. A veteran looked at the recruit contemptuously, and licked his lips. As soon as he finished speaking, Ace saw Grandpa Garp wearing the cloak of naval justice, walking slowly to the bow of the ship, laughing heartily, raised his right hand, and shook it. Hum. A special breath suddenly swirled around his fist, and then shrank suddenly, condensing into a layer of black shiny skin, covering Garp's fist. Armed color. Hardening. In the next moment, Garp squatted down slightly as he watched the Sea Kings pounced on the warship, and then suddenly ejected, as if disappeared in place. In front of the huge head of the Sea Kings, Garp's figure suddenly appeared. Compared with the terrifying figure of the Sea Kings, Garp seemed to be just an ant. But in the next second, Garp just waved his fist lightly at the eyebrows of the Sea Kings. Boom. This flimsy-looking fist seemed less threatening to the Sea King than a mosquito, but the moment the fist landed on its head, a monstrous force burst out. Under the shocked eyes of the sea soldiers, the heads of the Sea Kings disappeared in an instant, and exploded into a rain of blood, dyeing a large area of seawater red. When the corpses of the Sea Kings fell into the sea and set off a huge wave, Garp didn't know when he landed on the warship again. And a few veterans have brought chefs and tools, and rushed over to cut the meat happily. Judging by the level of proficiency, it is obviously not the first time they have done it. This is the power of a super general. Without a devil fruit, can you kill giant Sea Kings with one move? The sailors on the warship all showed expressions of admiration to Garp. Ace was also fascinated for a while, and he couldn't help admiring that he could do this step with physical strength alone, and secretly made up his mind that no matter what, he must stick to the physical exercise to the end. But at this moment, Ace suddenly saw Garp grinning and giving himself a thumbs up, with the expression of a child who performed successfully, as if waiting for everyone to praise him. Can't help but sigh. Funny comparison is funny comparison, no matter how strong the strength is. That night, the huge size of Neptunes allowed the chefs to give full play to their culinary skills, allowing everyone to feast on big pieces, and Ace ate his mouth full of oil. And he was also pleasantly surprised to find that the flesh of Sea Kings can absorb a little bit of energy, which makes his body recover a little bit more. To know this, he needs to work hard for 3 days, and he recovered after eating a meal. As if seeing Ace's surprise, a veteran sitting next to him smacked his lips and said, "This Neptune meat is a good thing. Eating it regularly can improve your physical fitness." Oh. Then why don't the sailors eat more? Please enlighten me. Ace asked respectfully. For these veterans, as long as they have a respectful attitude, they are very willing to guide them. Sure enough, the veteran was very satisfied with Ace's attitude, and replied, "Who doesn't want to eat more? But sea king meat can't be preserved for a long time, and it can only be effective within 3 days, so don't look at the sea king meat, it can't be packed. We also follow the lieutenant general, so we have the opportunity to have the occasional tooth-beating festival. If we buy it ourselves, a caddy of meat will cost Bailey's." When Ace heard this, he couldn't help opening his mouth. Bailey in Pirate World is not as valuable as the currency of his previous life, but the annual income of ordinary people is they only buy a caddy of meat. No. Eat more. Another gust of wind and clouds. There were no more accidents in the following days. Ace insisted on exercising every day. He found that the essence of the spirit fire can fully exert the effect of the essence when he exercises at a high intensity. The warship also arrived at the naval training base in the middle of the windless belt 3 days later, and the gourd-shaped island could be seen from a distance. After docking at the military port at Hulico, Ace was grabbed by the bluffing Garp and thrown directly ashore. Work hard. After saying this, Garp actually commanded the warship to drive away, leaving behind Ace, who was messed up in the sea breeze. This is too unreliable. Anyway, let me introduce the base and show myself the way. That. You. Are you Ace? Suddenly a shy voice came from behind, and Ace turned his head quickly, only to see a little girl with short sea blue hair standing behind him. I am. Are you? My name is Ain. I will show you around the base in the morning and introduce the rules of the base. I will take you back to the team in the afternoon. The little girl was wearing a navy uniform, and she blushed after saying a few words. Ian looks very cute, and his small face is very delicate, which makes people feel good. And many more. Ain. Isn't this the former Navy General Zephyr, the retrograde fruit female swordsman, Neo's deputy admiral of the Navy? Ace couldn't help but take a closer look, and sure enough, even the hair color is the same, except that the slender beauty admiral is only a 10-year-old child now. Being stared at by Ace, Ian's face turned even redder, so tender that it seemed to be dripping water. Cough. Seemingly aware that his behavior was impolite, Ace pretended to cough twice in embarrassment, touched his chin, and said, "Okay, then take me to see it." Ian led Ace towards the base. This was the first time she saw her peers at the base. Every few steps she took, she couldn't help sneaking a peek, and then her face flushed again. After a while, the two walked into the base, hearing the loud slogans of the sailors, and saw a wide square as soon as they entered the gate of the base, and neat queues were running around the square. A variety of training equipment, such as huge barbells and stone locks, were danced vigorously by the sailors. Ace's eyes froze slightly. Most of the sailors in front of him were only 15 or 16 years old, but they were all at least senior soldiers. It seemed that they were all potential stocks of the Navy, future generals. And the two huge screens in the center of the square also attracted Ace's attention. The screens displayed rows of names, a total of 200. Seeming to see Ace's doubts, Ain on the side quickly explained, "This is the leaderboard of the base's first stage students." Seeing the fighting spirit of the sailors every time they glanced at the leaderboard, Ace's heart moved. It seems that this is an effective way to motivate the students to work harder. Then how is this ranking calculated? Ace continued to ask. This ranking is the test ranking of last month. The test is divided into strength test, speed test, and physical reaction test. The higher the total score of the 3 tests, the higher the ranking. It seemed that Ace was still in doubt. And continued. The base will have a test every month. At the same time, the leaderboard will be updated. The last 20 will be eliminated, and the top 10 will have privileges. Hearing this, Ace couldn't help but smack his lips. This is really cruel. No wonder these sailors are more desperate than each other. And Ace couldn't help but look to the top of the leaderboard. Number 1, Gaspardy, strength, 820 kilograms, speed, 22 meters per second, physical reaction, 70 points. Ace raised his eyebrows. This name is quite familiar. Isn't it the Navy traitor who was defeated by Luffy later? Unexpectedly, although the person looks so anxious, he is not yet 20 years old. Later, this person ate the jelly candy fruit, and he doesn't know if he has the devil fruit ability now. Continuing to look down, I actually saw the name of the little lowly IN in no. 8. Ain. Strength. 515 kilograms, speed, 24 meters per second, physical response, 81 points. It seems that this little girl is very good. Although her strength is only above average, she is only 10 years old, and her speed and physical responsibility are higher than number 1. Seeing Ace's admiring gaze, Ian blushed immediately and kept waving his hands. I just react faster since I was a child, and many people are better than me. Ace doesn't think so. You must know that these tests are targeted, and your body responds quickly. But Ace didn't want to mention it too much, he just asked, "How are these tests done? Can you take me to have a look?" "Oh, that's right. Ian suddenly woke up like a dream. Come with me. There are still 10 days to test again. I will take you to get acquainted. The two soon came to a hall where several machines were placed, and Ian pointed to one of them and said, "The first machine is a machine for testing strength, and it can be measured by punching a punch at the target." Strength. Ace nodded, then looked at a machine similar to a treadmill and said, "This should be for testing speed." "That's right." Ian nodded, and continued to introduce. "The last machine is to test the body's ability to respond. It will quickly shoot 100 rubber balls at the target, and you will get a few points if you avoid them. But today there are no small balls in the machine, so it should not be used, but the other two machines can be tried first." "Oh?" Ace's eyes lit up. His current physical strength has returned to the peak of the soldier level, and he has long wanted to test his own strength. Ace walked to the strength testing machine in the corner and stretched his body first. Suck. Taking a deep breath, he swung his right fist forward. With a sound of pung, his fist hit the target of the strength testing machine. The boxing target shook, and a number appeared on the display screen of the testing machine, 595 kilogram. Seeing this number, Ace is not depressed. Although he can only be regarded as the 70 or 80 on the list, he must have returned to the school rank after 10 days, and he might be able to compete for the top 3 by then. But at this moment, Ace's heart suddenly moved. He had practiced his spiritual fire body Ju until now, but he hadn't tried it yet. Anyway, there were still 10 days left for the end-of-month test, and the period of weakness would have passed by then. Just do it. Ace's heart moved, and the airflow in the dantian no longer pulled out the flames, but suddenly wrapped the purple fire that shrank into a ball. The next moment, the purple fire suddenly exploded and rushed to every corner of Ace's body. And Ain on the side was wondering why Ace hadn't gotten off the strength testing machine. Although the result of 595 kilogram was not top-notch, it was not bad either. Just as she was about to remind Ace to come down to test the speed, her eyes flickered at the next moment. The child stared round. I saw that Ace's skin suddenly became red, and there was even a trace of heat rising from the surface of the skin. He stood in front of the punching target, his footsteps suddenly exerted force, his body turned slightly, and the force flowed from the waist along the joints. The spine passed into his arm. I saw his fist swung out violently, and with a scream, it hit the target with a boom. The target shook violently, and there was a gleam of joy in Ace's eyes. What a powerful force. He turned his head and glanced at the screen, 1255 kilogram. Twice the power. Ain's ruddy mouth forgot to close, his eyes were full of adoring little stars. Ace looked about the same age as himself. Why is he so powerful? Brother Ace, come and test the speed. With a flick of his short blue hair, Ain helped Ace turn on the speed test machine, and the title was changed to become more intimate unconsciously. Ace adjusted his breathing, jumped on the spot, and walked onto the runway with a smile. Whoosh. With a kick of his legs, Ace accelerated to the limit like a cheetah, and flashed across the runway of the speed test machine in an instant. 27.8 meters per second, 100 meters only takes more than 3 seconds. Ian's little face flushed with excitement, as if this result belonged to her. Brother, you will be number 1 in the next test. Ain spoke quickly. Ordinary students live in an ordinary dormitory with 4 people in one room, and the top 10 will have their own separate dormitory. And number 1 even you can live in the same luxury apartment as the second stage students. Gulu gulu gulu. Ace's stomach made a sound at this moment, interrupting Ain's words, and he scratched his head a little embarrassedly, but cursed in his heart. I didn't say that there would be such a sequelae after using the pure body art. Feeling that he was too excited just now, something was wrong. Ian blushed again, and said quickly, I'll take you to the cafeteria for dinner. Ace stopped running the magic formula, and the power in his body receded like a tide, and even only half of the power of the peak soldier level was left. Although the operation time is short this time and the sequelae are relatively weak, it will take about half a day to be weak. Gulu gulu. The sound came from the stomach again, which made Ace feel a little embarrassed. Eat, eat. PFF'd. Let's go, brother. Ace's embarrassment finally made Ain laugh, and his brother called more naturally. In the corner of the cafeteria, Ace was eating a piece of food made of sea kings. His face was full of surprise. He didn't expect to eat this precious food again so soon. You eat too. Ace was a little embarrassed to eat by himself, because Ian had originally invited this meal, but opposite him, the little girl leaned on the table with her elbows, and just looked at Ace with her head propped up. No, no, I'm losing weight. Ian blushed again, but immediately asked with glowing eyes, Brother, why didn't you use all your strength at the beginning of the test? Brother is obviously so powerful. I'm not that powerful either. Ace ate other people's food and was embarrassed to say nonsense. I can only have that kind of power for a short time, and I will be weak for a while after that. Ah? Ian panicked all of a sudden, and he was on the verge of crying. Is that brother injured? It's all because of Ian's fault. My brother asked you to exercise as soon as he got off the boat. Ace was also taken aback. He had never been in a relationship with either of his identities in his previous life, and he had very little contact with girls. The little girl was tearful, which made him feel at a loss. He quickly clenched his fist, pointed to the muscles on his arm and said, after eating Ain's meal, I'm all right. I'm full of strength. Really? Uh-huh. Only then did the little girl laugh, then eat more. Ace secretly wiped the cold sweat from his forehead, buried his head in a binge eating. Of course, his weak period has not passed, and his strength is only half of the peak soldier level, but his physical condition is indeed good. After tempering after Ziwo erupted, as soon as this period of weakness passed, he could regain his school-level physical strength, and Ziwo didn't shrink into a ball anymore, so he could use it again. Huh. Isn't this the little girl of Ain? A sour voice suddenly interrupted Ace's interest in eating, and a sea soldier with slender and mean eyes came over. This is the top 10 dining room on the ranking list. Area. Why did you bring another brat over here? Ace frowned and looked at the person who came. There must be something wrong with this person. I just came here, so I didn't provoke him. When he saw the food on Ace's dinner plate, the man said even more eccentrically, Hey, I ordered a set meal for this kid. We can only eat one free meal a week for the top 10, you let this kid eat? Poka. That's enough. I'm one rank higher than you this time, so I need it. Ian was obviously very angry. He had been wronged a lot during this time, and there were tears in his eyes. But that Poka has no sympathy at all, but is even more arrogant. He is 17 years old this year. He was originally number 8, but this time he was compared by a little girl. Friends laughed. If it wasn't for my failure to perform well, Little girl, are you fierce with me? Poka's eyes were fierce, and he glared fiercely at Ain, ready to pounce. Every time he did this in the past, he could see Ain's scared look, which would make Poka go crazy satisfaction. Although Ain had some talent, he was still a little girl after all, so he was startled, but thinking about Ace's weakness, he didn't retreat this time, but gritted his teeth, wanting to stand in front. At this time, a warm palm suddenly grabbed Ian, protected her behind him, and smiled softly at her. This person was Ace. Although he didn't know the concept of melee, he was already very moved when he heard that Ain gave himself the only melee. And the scum who was angry at the little girl in front of him made Ace even more disgusted, so he stepped forward without hesitation and walked to the front. Brother Ace. This person is ranked 9th, with a strength of 600 kilograms. He is only ranked lower than me because of his poor speed and reaction. He just came to trouble me. You are not well. Ian was very sad in a hurry, she didn't want to hurt Ace again because of herself. Don't worry, trust me. Ace squeezed Ian's hand, his voice full of confidence. And Ian felt the temperature in his hands, his face flushed, his body softened, he was speechless, and inexplicably developed confidence in Ace. Courting death. Poka originally wanted to scare them, but when he saw 2 10-year-old children vying to be his opponent, he suddenly became angry. Does he look so easy to deal with? After finishing speaking, he raised his fist and threw it at Ace, intending to knock the kid unconscious first. And Ace looked at the fist that was getting closer and closer, but he was not afraid at all, his eyes even shone with a murderous look, holding Ain with one hand, and in the palm of the other hand, a purple spark had already passed. Jump out. 2 generations of human beings, killing decisively. Boom. Poka's fist didn't hit Ace, but was blocked by a man wearing a cloak of justice who suddenly appeared. From the military rank on his shoulder, it can be seen that this is a major general. Porka. Your skin is itchy. Dare to do it at the base. The major general threw Poka to the ground and shouted. Go out and run 50 laps around the square for me, no food allowed. Yes. Major General Shatton. Poka rolled around in a panic, got up in a panic, and ran out of the cafeteria quickly, but before leaving, he gave Ace a hard look and thought to himself. Wait for me, little brat. As expected of an instructor, Boka's punch weighed at least 600 kilograms, and was easily blocked by the instructor. These 2 brats are really lucky. The sailors eating in the cafeteria whispered to each other when they saw the farce was over. Are you all right? Sardin asked lightly. It's okay, thank you instructor. Ain replied respectfully. It's fine, let's go eat. Shatton turned and left, but he took a deep look at Ace before he left. The soldiers all thought that he helped Ace and Ain off Polkadot. At that moment, he actually felt the murderous aura and threat from Ace. Can this boy who looks only 10 years old threaten himself, a major general? Shaking his head, Shatton smiled. It may be because he has not been on mission for a long time and has hallucinations. It seems that he will have to resign his position as an instructor later. And Ace also breathed a sigh of relief, turned his right hand, and put away the purple fire. If the Major General didn't come out just now, he might have to abolish this scum. However, it's good that I don't need to reveal my whole cards now. Ain. What did that meal of that Poka said just now mean? Ace said in a gentle tone. Blushing, he gently pulled out his little hand, and In replied. The food in the cafeteria is divided into 2 grades, A and B. The B grade is free and unlimited, and the A grade is made of precious materials. Eating it is good for the body. But ordinary students can only eat 1 free meal a month, and if they want to eat other than this meal, they have to pay for it themselves, and a serving is estimated to cost Baileys. Ace smiled wryly, and he ate Baileys as soon as he came. Seemingly hearing Ace's wry smile, Ain hurriedly said, I'm a top 10 student, so I can eat once a week, brother, don't worry. Enin. Although he nodded, Ace was quite touched in his heart. In the afternoon, Ace officially joined the 5th team of the training base under the leadership of Ain. The instructor of the team was Major General Shatton, who helped at noon. On the training field, the 5th team has 32 people in total, and Shatton, wearing a cloak of justice fluttering in the wind, stands at the front. Ace had time to take a closer look at the instructor in front of him. Shatton is a middle-aged man with a height of 1.9 meters. He has short hair like a steel needle, a typical Chinese character face, and his expression is calm and majestic. Shatton was also taken aback when he saw Ace. The corners of his mouth tilted up, and he smiled strangely, and said, You are the transfer student sent by Lieutenant General Garp. This training base is the highest level training base for the Navy. It is for the Navy. An officer's place. If Lieutenant General Garp hadn't assured the base chief that you were a good candidate, there wouldn't be many precedents for midway transfers here. Don't let us down. When Lieutenant General Garp was mentioned, there were voices of discussion among the students at the scene. After all, Garp is a naval hero, and there are still many sailors who worship him. The student recommended by Lieutenant General Garp must be very good. That's right, Lieutenant General Garp is the most upright. If this kid doesn't have 2 skills, how can he be recommended? Of course, there are also different voices. I don't think so, after all, he looks only about 10 years old. Quiet. Shatton's majestic scolding sound came, and the training ground was suddenly silent. At the time of enrollment, there were 5 teams of students in the first stage, with a total of 280 people. Our team has 56 students. Now, 4 months in the past, 24 people were eliminated from our team, more than any other team. The top 10 is only a 10-year-old girl named In. How can you be so kind? Let me train. Everyone agreed abruptly, and ran to the training ground together. But when Ace wanted to go together, Shatton stopped him. Ace, wait. Come with me to the entrance test and enter your information into the leaderboard. Huh. Isn't it 10 days later? Ace was stunned, he was still in the weak stage. Shatton put his hands behind his back, glanced at Ace lightly, and said, Even the transfer students have to take the entrance test, no one can be an exception. The end-of-month test has nothing to do with the entrance test. Let's go, Lieutenant General. He also recommended a transfer student. You test it together. Ace was very helpless, so he could only follow Shatton to the test hall. Fortunately, this entrance test did not eliminate him, otherwise he would be sadly reminded in his weak state. When the two passed by the square, there was a sudden commotion in the square, and all the sailors couldn't help but stop training, pointing at the leaderboard, amazed. Number 1 has been replaced. Who is this person? Why haven't I seen him before? And he threw Gaspardy away so much at once. This is Drake. I heard that he is a transfer student recommended by Lieutenant General He. He really has strength. This time Lieutenant General Karp also recommended a transfer student. I don't know how strong he is. Ace touched his nose and smiled awkwardly, probably disappointing these people this time. But this Drake, isn't he the 11 supernova, the ancient animal species, the Tyrannosaurus fruit-capable person? Another fallen Navy. Ace has a strange expression on his face. The students in this period are really interesting. At the moment, number 1 on the leaderboard. Drake, strength, 1,135 kilograms, speed, 25.1 meters per second, physical response, 91 points. Tisk. This body reaction speed is about to awaken the domineering look. Shatton sighed for a while when he saw this score, then waved to Ace, and said with some expectation, Let's go, I hope you can give me a surprise. Ace had no choice but to keep up, but he felt more and more guilty. He knew his own situation. This Drake's strength had obviously reached the senior school level, and Ace could be regarded as the first school level. The trick is to double the explosion, which is definitely 2 blocks away from Drake. However, this is only an assumption when the body is in good condition. After entering the test hall, Ace saw Drake standing aside and resting at a glance, and there was a rear admiral standing beside him. Hey, isn't this Instructor Shatton? The Major General with a scar on his left face leaned over at this moment and said proudly, Your 5th unit is alright, it's almost empty. Our second unit is there are still 42 students, and there are 2 top 10, no. Plus Drake is the number 1. Our team already has 3 top 10, ha 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 ha. Looking at the villain's proud face, Shatton couldn't help showing disgust on his face. Mundo, that's all you've got. If you talk too much, believe it or not, I'll let you have more scars on your face. Hearing this, Mondo's complexion changed, and he retreated to the corner with a cold snort. Obviously, his strength was indeed inferior to that of Shatton. Ace, you go to test. Seeing Mundo's performance, Shatton felt a little better. Okay. Ace reluctantly stood on the strength testing machine again, and Drake, who was resting, couldn't help looking over, wanting to see the strength of the young man recommended by Lieutenant General Garp. Boom. 296 kilogram, ha 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 ha. Sutton, is your student here to be funny? It seems that he can only stay at the base for 10 days. Mondo on the side laughed arrogantly again when he saw this result. HMPH. Shut up, it's not your turn to tell how my students are doing. Shatton's face was also a little ugly, but in the army, you must protect your weaknesses, and only you can train your own soldiers, go on. 10 meters per second, the speed test scores were similarly poor. Ace grinned. Although he had been mentally prepared for a long time, this result still made him speechless for a while. To test the body's reaction ability, Shatton's face was already a little gloomy, and he went straight to turn on the last machine. Dozens of muzzles protruded from the front of the machine, and they spun with a click sound, much like a Gatling machine gun, and the rubber ball was obviously shot out of the muzzle. Stand within the red circle and avoid the ball. No matter what you do, your body must not exceed the space above the circle. 10 points will be deducted once. After speaking, Shatton officially turned on the machine. Ace's expression froze, his spirit tensed up, and the dozens of gun barrels opposite him began to spin rapidly. One by one rubber balls were shot out suddenly, at different speeds, and even the flight trajectory could be changed, shooting straight at the Ace. In this situation, ordinary people must be in a mess, but Ace was suddenly surprised to find that he had roughly outlined the trajectory of these rubber balls in his mind. Is this knowledgeable? Or maybe it's just because Ace came back from time travel, so the soul is very powerful. At this moment, there was no time to think about it, his body was swinging left and right, and rubber balls passed by him quickly. Only some small balls were too fast, and Ace's body swing speed couldn't keep up. You can only let them hit yourself. Fortunately, these are small balls made of rubber, and it doesn't hurt to hit the body. Soon, 100 small balls were shot. 73 points, Ace panted hard, not very satisfied with this score, because if the body can keep up with the consciousness, he is sure to avoid all the rubber balls. Physical reflexes are not bad. Shatton's face looked better, but he still evaluated according to the real situation. It's just that your speed and strength are too poor. If you don't break through these few days, you will be tested at the end of the month 10 days later. Difficult to pass. Shatton didn't say too much, but he really didn't like Ace, and he also felt that Ace would probably leave in 10 days. It's not just bad. This is already the bottom one, haha. Mundo's disgusting voice came again, interrupting Shatton's next words. My student is the first, and your student is the bottom one. First, ha 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 ha. Are you looking for death? Are you courting death? This Mundo really deserved a beating. Shatton's temper exploded all of a sudden, and a trace of arrogance wrapped around his right hand, and he was about to rush forward to beat Mundo. And Mundo trembled when he saw the domineering entanglement in Shatton's hands, and he couldn't help but feel a little regretful. He is also a major general, but his strength is also very different, and the three of them are not Shatton's opponents. Instructor, wait. But at this moment, Shatton was suddenly stopped by Ace. Shatton was so angry that he had nowhere to vent his anger, and his tone couldn't help but become very bad. What are you doing? You must know that he was helping Ace, but Ace stopped him. If this student dare not resist in the face of insults, how can he face vicious pirates alone in the future? His opinion of Ace couldn't help but get worse. But then, Ace's words changed his attitude. Hello instructor, since General Meng looks down on me so much, I would like to make a bet with him. Shatton was a little puzzled, but suddenly thought of the sense of threat that this child could bring to him in the cafeteria at noon. Shatton suppressed the anger in his heart, nodded in a strange way, and signaled Ace to continue talking. Mundo General, is it? Do you dare to make this bet with me? With Shatton's permission, Ace turned his head to face Mundo. There was no respect in his voice. He would not be friendly to the enemy. Of course Mundo didn't like this attitude very much, but he wisely didn't make too much trouble when he saw Shatton whose anger was still lingering. HMPH. Say it. 10 days later, at the end of the month test, I will compare with your entire team, whoever gets the higher score in the test. If I lose. Ace paused, then raised a finger and said with a smile, I'll give you 1 million Baileys. What? Mondo trembled in his heart. His annual salary was only 50 berries. He was very clear about his own strength. He didn't dare to go to sea to deal with those vicious bounty criminals, so he got it in 1 year. The money is only 50, but the child in front of him has 1 million in one mouth. But Mundo was not immediately dazzled by the huge sum of money, and sarcastically said, 1 million? Do you have it, you little brat? Ace was still smiling, and said calmly, I was sent by Lieutenant General Garp himself. 1 million Baileys? Huh, little money. Hearing this, most of the doubts in Mondo's heart have been removed, and Garp's strength is deeply rooted in the hearts of the people. As long as this great god cleans up 2 bounty criminals at will, hundreds of millions are estimated to be easy. But how did he know that Garp was an upright person, and the bounty prisoners he caught had already been given nothing, and all of them were sent to the submarine prison? Except for his salary, how could he have much money left? Of course, Ace was talking nonsense, but he bluffed all the people present, bragging and not asking for money. And Ace is also extremely confident. After 10 days, his strength has definitely skyrocketed. Since he will definitely win, why dare not say it? Then what do you want to bet? Mundo is not stupid. Ace must be asking for 1 million yuan as a bet, but he is not worried either. With the strength of his major general, he has just seen that Ace has indeed tried his best. Alright, with the strength that ranks last among the 202 people, can it still turn the world upside down in 10 days? In his opinion, Ace is just a second-generation ancestor who is stupid and rich. And hearing Mundo's question, Ace's mouth slanted slightly, knowing that Mundo had already moved his heart. Hooked. Then, Ace was no longer polite, his eyes flashed, he pointed at the stunned Drake at the door, and said, I want him. What? Huh. Drake stood up abruptly, staring at him unkindly. In his opinion, Ace was insulting him. Oh? Mondo didn't get angry. Instead, he reached out to stop Drake, raised his eyebrows, you bet 1 million on this. Can I ask why? Seeing that Mundo didn't refuse, Drake's face became even uglier, and he became disgusted with Mundo. Of course it's because the value of Mr. Drake is far more than 1 million. In my opinion, million is not enough. Ace smiled apologetically at Drake and said, I have no other meaning, if I win, I just hope you can come to our 5th team. Of course, 1 million is too little for Drake. Before the top war in the previous life, Drake's bounty had already exceeded 222 million, but no one at the scene knew it. Hearing Ace's affirmation of himself, Drake's expression slowed down. He could see that Ace didn't mean to insult him, but he still didn't want to be used for betting. But just as he was about to refuse, Mondo made a decision without asking for his consent. Okay. We bet. Although Drake didn't think he would lose, he hated himself as an instructor extremely in his heart at this time. After making the bet, the few people present dispersed separately, but Mondo, who was looking forward to 1 million, didn't know that Ace, who bet with him, had no money in his pocket. Walking out of the test hall, Ace walked towards the training square, but just as he was about to enter the square, he saw a petite figure rushing towards him. This figure rushed into Ace's arms all of a sudden, crying in his voice, Brother, I'm sorry, it's all my fault, you became the last one, I shouldn't let you try first in the morning, that way my brother won't get hurt, and now I can take first place. This figure is Ian, and Ace felt the soft body in his arms, and he didn't know where to put his hands. After hesitating for a while, he patted Ian's back and comforted him. I don't blame Ian, it's my brother himself. Hard to try. But they all said bad things about my brother. Ian felt aggrieved, I told them that my brother was injured, and they didn't believe it. Ace's heart warmed, knowing that Ian must have defended himself just now, and he also felt strange eyes not far away at this moment, and waves of discussion came over. HMPH, this kid really came in through Lieutenant General Karp's relationship. Look at the leaderboard, tisk tisk, the bottom one, I'm afraid I will say goodbye in 10 days. But this kid is quite lucky. The voices that came over were full of contempt, and Ian, who was in his arms, looked at him even more worried. It's okay, don't you know my brother's strength? After 10 days, let's see how they laugh. Ace rubbed the little girl's head, okay, stop hugging, go to training. Ah. Only then did Ian realize that he hugged his brother in front of so many people, his face turned red, he quickly jumped away, and stammered. Yes. I'm sorry brother, I didn't mean to. Haha, it's okay, I took advantage of this. Ace's words made Ian even more shy, and he stopped training, and ran to the dormitory area covering his face. Did I say the wrong thing? Ace scratched his head in bewilderment. What? You said that kid won the last place, ha 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 ha. In a luxurious apartment with 3 bedrooms and 1 living room, Poca was lying on a soft sofa, listening to a younger brother's report, and sneered. I thought how powerful this kid is. Just these 2 times, I still want to be a hero at noon today. If that old boy Shatten didn't stop me, I would have eliminated him long ago. That's, brother, how amazing you are. The younger brother complimented flatteringly, and then he had an idea, and suggested. That kid caused elder brother to run more than 50 laps today. Why don't we teach him a lesson tonight? Know where his dormitory is? Poka's eyes lit up, he laughed loudly, and praised. You are a good kid, lead the way. After getting up, Boka hesitated for a moment, and then said, wait, you go to the room on the left and bring my brother's sharp knife Fushui. Okay. The feeling of commanding people is good, and Poka is very proud. In fact, his strength is not worthy of others, but who made him a good big brother. This luxury apartment is his brother's residence, and he moved in while his brother was out on a mission. Poka's older brother Baranka entered the second stage training camp the year before last, and his swordsmanship is now superb. He doesn't even know how strong his older brother is now. Brother's strength. He once heard his brother mention that as long as his brother graduated from the training camp, he would at least have the rank of colonel, and the younger brothers behind him were also here for his brother. But Boka was also happy to be so pretentious, grabbed the blowing snow handed over by his younger brother, pushed open the door and strode out in high spirits. At this moment, Ace has returned to the dormitory, because his period of weakness has passed, and he needs to check his body. With a thought, the attribute panel appeared in front of Ace. Attributes. Physical fitness, school, 2 spiritual fire essence body art, the first level. Refining energy. 1/10 the content on the panel has not changed much, but Ace's heart is full of joy, because the physique column has completely become a solid line. After so many days of hard work, his body strength has finally returned to its original level, and the extra tempering energy also told him that from today on, all the tempering energy can be completely used for body improvement. The original recovery period would take several years. But Ace recovered so quickly. In this, the Spirit Fire Pure Body Art played a big role, but it was also inseparable from his crazy exercise every day. After all, the Pure Body Art can only work faster during exercise. Pung. When Ace was about to continue exercising, the door of the dormitory was kicked open suddenly, and 3 sailor students rushed in from the outside. Originally, Ace thought it was those roommates he hadn't seen before, but when he saw the sour-faced Poka in the middle, he knew that the visitor was not kind. Poka. Are you okay? Ace asked, frowning. HMPH, why are you talking to our boss? A blonde-haired boy said to Ace arrogantly, you made our boss lose face at noon today, and today we are here to solve the problem. Really, what do you want to solve? Ace looked a little weird. How careful this Poka is to care about such trivial matters. Kneel down and kowtow 3 times. Boka held the sword, pretending to be a boss. But his pair of slender eyes, no matter how you look at them, they are neither fish nor fowl. Ace narrowed his eyes, it seemed that he was underestimated. What if I say no? Choke, with a sound of the sword, Boka pulled out Fubuki. The cold light was threatening, it was indeed a good sword. HMPH, then you will be abolished, Poka sneered. Ace was about to answer when his eyebrows moved suddenly, because the system that hadn't moved for a long time suddenly made a sound to him. A sharp knife has been detected, and it is recommended that the host seize it. Ace knows that there are 5 levels of swords in the world of One Piece. Ordinary sword, fast sword, good fast sword, big fast sword and supreme big fast sword. There are 12 supreme big knives, 21 big knives, and 50 good knives. These 3 grades of knives are rare and the most precious. Although there are a lot of fast knives, they are rare and good things in people's eyes, but I am not a swordsman, so why do I want to take the knives? As if sensing Ace's doubts, the system explained, swords with a quality above the fast knife can be used to repair my body, and the energy in it can also be used to improve the host's physique. In addition, there are some other benefits, waiting for the host to seize it. Let me know later. Hearing this, Ace's eyes lit up. He remembered that the mysterious ruler in the hall before should be the main body of the system. The ruler was indeed full of cracks, so the system did not lie. And the system's seductive tone also shows that these famous knives are definitely more important to the system than what it says. But Ace doesn't want to know the truth right away, he just needs to know that as long as he takes the sharp knife, he can quickly improve his physique. Suddenly, Ace looked at Poka in front of him and his eyes changed, as if a wolf saw a sheep and salivated. The communication between Ace and the system was only a moment to the outside world. Poka just saw Ace stunned for a moment, and then showed a slightly greedy expression to himself, which made him feel creepy. But he immediately felt something was wrong, and immediately became angry. He was actually frightened by the last place in the entire training camp. Court death. Poka did not dare to use a knife in the training camp, but closed the knife with his left hand, clenched his fist with his right hand, swung his waist suddenly, and hit Ace with a punch. He only needed to break Ace's arm, and his brother the relationship between the big and small things can definitely be turned into small things. But at the next moment, Boka was surprised to find that Ace didn't dodge, but just like him, he punched him directly. This kid with a strength of only 300 kilograms wants to compete with himself, a master who punches 700 kilograms. It's too overpowering. You're looking for death yourself, don't blame me. Poka showed a cruel smile on his face, as if he saw Ace's arm broken into 3 pieces, screaming and flying out. And the yellow hair on one side also showed a gloating expression, this kid is dead. Pung. Da. The next moment, the smiles of the two froze on their faces, and instantly changed to unbelievable. The 2 fists clashed, and there was a muffled sound. Ace didn't take a step back, but Poka took a few steps back. Judging from the trembling of his arms, he was already injured at the moment. And Ace didn't stop at the same place, but sprinted forward, turned around and kicked his legs in one go, and Fubuki in Poka's hand was kicked away. Thank you. Ace stretched out his hand to grab it to the side, then grabbed the handle of Fubuki's knife, and laughed. Ka is not worried that Ace will take the knife away, because in his opinion, with his brother's strength, it must be easy to get it back. But he was still very angry, turned his head and yelled at Huang Mao. You told me that this is the last one? A person with a strength of only 300 kilograms can fight me? Are you kidding me? He's really the bottom one. It's clearly shown on the leaderboard. If you don't believe me, you can ask him. Huang Mao pointed to another younger brother. He is also very wronged now, feeling cheated by Ace. You said you are such a master. What are you pretending? It's interesting. That's right. He is indeed the last one. The other younger brother nodded quickly. Hearing this, Poka has already believed it, since the younger brother didn't lie to him, then Ace is hiding his strength. But even if Ace's strength is good, but he can lose face, don't think about it today. Thinking of this, a stern look flashed across Boka's face, and he waved at the 2 younger brothers, let's go together. He didn't believe that the 3 of them couldn't deal with this kid, but just after they took 2 steps forward, the 3 of them stopped abruptly, startled by the scene in front of them. After Ace got Fushui, he held the blade with both hands as required by the system, and then he felt a suction force coming from his hand, and then the essence of the sharp knife turned into a trace of black energy, sucked by his hand's walk, upload all the way along the arm, and finally be swallowed by the system. After most of the energy was taken away by the system didn't forget about Ace and gave him a small part. And it was this small part that surprised Ace. With a thought, the attribute panel appeared again. Attributes. Physical fitness, school, 2 spiritual fire essence body art, the first level. Refining energy. 32/10 the tempering energy increased directly to 32, and Ace chose to strengthen his body without hesitation, and the data on the attribute panel changed in the next moment. Attributes. Physical fitness, school, 4 spiritual fire essence body art, the first level. Refining energy. 2/30 strengthening the physique from 2 to 4 consumes 30 points of tempering energy. It should be that each enhancement consumes points more refining energy than the last one, but Ace is already satisfied. To improve his physical fitness at the school level, he needs to exercise crazily for more than half a month for each short section, and now a knife saves Ace a lot of time. Each level is divided into 10 stages, and then strengthened 6 times, you can break through to the major general level physique. With the disappearance of the essence, the Fubuki Kuaisao had become dull and dull. With a little force from Ace, the once good knife broke in 2. Ace knew that the knife had become so brittle that a child could break it easily, so he wasn't surprised, but in the eyes of Boka and others, it was terrifying. Breaking off a sharp knife with bare hands? This Ace actually hides his strength. Brother, let's go, we're not opponents. Huang Mao's eyes were already frightened, and he was ready to run away. To shut up. But Boka slapped the yellow hair over with a slap, and his eyes turned red. This knife does not belong to him. He thought that carrying a knife would look more imposing, but who would have thought that it would be ruined? This knife has been with his brother Barranca for nearly 10 years. Although Barranca has changed his saber, he treats this knife like his wife. Thinking of his brother's anger, Poka swallowed. Poka knew that he was not Ace's opponent, but it didn't prevent him from saying in a bitter tone. Stinky boy, you are finished. My brother is a second stage student. You ruined my brother's knife. Don't think about dying easily. Let's go. Just when the few people turned to leave, Ace's joking voice came over. You come and leave whenever you want. Are you threatening me before you leave? As soon as the words fell, Boka felt a gust of wind coming from behind, followed by 2 bangs, and his 2 younger brothers were kicked to the ground. Leave something. Ace pinched Poka's arm with his hand, and Poka wanted to resist, but suddenly found that Ace's strength had become stronger again, and he had no time to struggle. Click. The sound of bone breaking sounded, and Boka let out a scream, and fell limply to the ground. The severe pain in his arm told him that the bone was broken in at least 3 pieces. To his despair, he would not be able to participate in the end-of-month test 10 days later. And there are no exceptions to the cruel rules of the training base. If you can't participate, you will be eliminated. His head was sweating from the pain, but Boka didn't dare to stay here anymore, but fled away in embarrassment with his 2 younger brothers. Ace looked at their backs and narrowed his eyes slightly. He knew that the other party would not let it go, but this is a naval base after all. If he killed someone, his desire to learn naval gymnastics and domineering would be shattered. Exhaling a breath, Ace stopped thinking about it, but calmly asked the system, "Now, do you have something to explain to me? For example, what is your purpose? Why did you choose me?" The system was silent for a while, but Ace was not in a hurry, just waiting for the system's answer. As if feeling Ace's determination, the system had no choice but to reply, "I need someone to help me repair the main body, but the more specific purpose, sorry, I can't tell you for the time being." Ace was not satisfied with this answer. The system paused for a while, and continued, "Don't worry, I have merged with you and will not harm you. It's just that the real purpose is too involved. At least when you have the strength of a general, you can tell it all to you." Hearing the last sentence, Ace frowned, and was a little shocked. The general is already the top figure in One Piece, and he only knows the minimum requirements for the purpose of the system. Then this secret must be extremely dangerous, and it is not the current Ace at all. Should know. Therefore, Ace stopped obsessing over this issue, but asked, "Your body is the mysterious ruler, right? How to fix it?" Seeing that Ace no longer asked about his purpose, the system breathed a sigh of relief, and replied, "Yes, you have just seen that the swords above the quality of fast swords in the world of One Piece condense the painstaking efforts of the creators. It can be said that swords you ling, as long as you collect those swords for me to absorb, you can restore my body." Hearing this, Ace understood, and his expression became weird. He co-authored that he was going to become the swordsman public enemy of Pirate World, and absorbed all the famous swords they cherished? However, thinking about the strength he can improve after absorbing the famous sword, Ace can only say sorry to them silently. Dang bang. Ace looked at the ground, and it was the broad-backed sword that was put into the space of the different fire on Garp's ship. The cold light flickering on the sword told Ace that this sword was already of the quality of a fast sword. This is the other benefit mentioned earlier. It can improve the broad-backed broadsword to the limit quality that I can absorb famous swords. The system did not explain much. Compared with the samurai sword, Ace really prefers this Chinese-style broadsword. He put the broadsword away again and said, "If you have any other information, just tell me this time." The host's application of this different fire system is still at the novice stage. When the host reaches the strength of a major general, he will get the different fire, and further information will naturally be provided to you. The voice of the system became emotionless again. Ace was helpless, and that's right, except for the core upgrade props of the system, except for the essence of the spirit fire. The broad-backed broadsword and purple beast fire he used were indeed novice props. But when he thought that the beast fire was already so strong, if he had a strange fire, how violent would it be? Qinglian's heart is on fire? Bone spirit cold fire, or Jinglian demon fire? It seems that we must work hard to reach the major general level as soon as possible. Famous swordsman, here I come. The next day, the teaching office of the naval training base. Ace looked at Poka, who was in a bandage and was speechless for a while. He thought that there would be revenge, but he didn't expect it to be so fast and in this way. Sue the teacher? Opposite Ace and Boka, there are Shadon and Mondo standing, and there is another officer sitting on the seat, which should be the staff of the teaching office. Instructor. You must expel this boy who doesn't obey the rules of the base. Poka complained first, and complained loudly. Ace. That's what Boka said. You beat him for no reason. Shadon said in a serious tone, according to the regulations, if there is an unreasonable fight at the base, he will be expelled. Ace was about to refute, when a mischievous thought suddenly popped up in his mind, so a wronged expression suddenly appeared on his face. Instructors. You are wrong. My ranking is the bottom 1, and Polkadot is in the top 10. How could I possibly beat him? Ace's exposed strength was indeed far inferior to that of Polkadot. In addition, he was only 10 years old, and the few officers present believed him a little bit. Then he turned to Poka again, and said with an innocent face, You didn't break your arm yourself and planted me. Porka. This is your fault. How can you wrong your classmates? It was Mondo who spoke, which surprised Ace. Poka is a student in Mondo's second team. But after thinking about it, Ace understood that if he was fired, who would send 1 million to Mundo for the end-of-month test after 10 days? Thinking of this, Ace laughed. They are all good people, instructor, you. Poka had an unbelievable expression on his face. Looking at the innocent Ace, he felt that he was about to vomit blood. This is different from what I planned. You have to trust me, Poca said aggrievedly. You guys have to trust me even more. Ace looked even more aggrieved. HMPH, have you had enough trouble? The officer in the Academic Affairs Office's face was so gloomy that he was about to drip water. I don't have time to accompany you to mess around here. If there is no problem, just let me go. Haha. Don't be angry, don't be angry. Like a peacemaker, Mondo comforted with a smile, and then patted Poca on the shoulder. Poca, take care of your wounds, teacher, I still think highly of you. Then, several officers got up and left. Take care of your sister. I'm finished, Poca growled in his heart. I like you too. Ace also patted Poca on the shoulder, then whistled and left the office. Woohoo, Poca cried. At noon, the canteen of the training base. Hey, I heard that my brother cried when he bullied Poca today. Ian covered his mouth and snickered, then waved his small fist and said, you did a good job, who made him always bully me? Haha. Ace was also in a good mood, and asked casually. I heard from Poca yesterday that his brother is a second stage student, can you tell me about it? Ah. A trace of worry appeared on Ian's face. Then brother, you have to be careful. The training base is divided into two parts, the first stage and the second stage. The students in the first stage are already naval elites, and they will be officers after graduation. And the second stage is even more terrible. The best students are selected from the first stage twice a year, and they are the elite among the elite. The students who graduate from the second stage are at least school-level officers. I even heard that there were once graduates, became a major general. Hearing this, Ace also felt a little unbelievable. In the past few days, he also learned a little about the graduation system of the base. He knew that if he wanted to obtain the rank of general, he had to meet the requirements first, and then he had to obtain the military merit of the corresponding position. That is quite difficult. It seems that I have to pay attention to Poca's brother. And the chief who will guide the second stage is the chief instructor of the base, Master Zephyr. Having said this, Ain's eyes flickered with admiration. Zephyr. Ace was taken aback. The chief instructor of this naval base is Zephyr. Does brother know too? In asked with his head tilted. Of course I know. The well-known Black Wrist, Zephyr, who fought against countless pirates in his life, but never killed any enemy, was called the former general of the Navy headquarters who was called, Don't Kill. With a powerful weapon and domineering style, it has become the nightmare of many pirates. After resigning from the position of admiral, he has taught countless naval generals. It can be said that more than half of the current admirals and lieutenant generals in the Navy are students of Zephyr. Of course, Ace would be very happy if he could learn from Zephyr, because with ZFA's teaching ability, he would definitely avoid many detours. But this is not the point. Count the time, and then look at Ain in front of him. Ace is sure that he has caught up with the big event. In the 13th year of the Great Pirate Era, that is, next year, Zephyr led his students to go out to sea to do missions, and met the vicious pirate Edward Wable. After the fierce battle, his students were almost wiped out, only Ain and Binz survived, and he himself lost an arm. Originally, he only met the little beauty Ian, and Binz and Zephyr were nowhere to be seen. Ace still had a chance, but now he understands that as long as he continues to stay at the base, he will definitely participate in this battle next year. And Edward Wable is the one who can cut off ZFA's arm, and his strength is definitely at the level of a real general. He now knew that among the second stage students, there must be someone whose strength is at the level of a major general, but they also failed to survive that battle. What does this mean? Ordinary major generals are no longer enough to protect themselves. So if he wants to survive on his own, Ace has to become an elite major general within a year, so that he can barely protect himself in the big battle a year later. Ain, tell brother, you want to worship Zephyr as your teacher. Yeah. Ain agreed without hesitation, but his eyes dimmed again, but I'm not strong enough. Don't be afraid, trust me, brother, you can do it. Ain looked into Ace's deep eyes, and for some reason, he felt confident. Well, I will definitely work hard. Of course Ace is sure, after all, he knows the plot behind it. And after knowing Ain's thoughts, he completely gave up the idea of avoiding the war. In the past few days, he has developed a good impression of the simple Ain. This kind of beauty is worth his efforts to protect, so he wants to participate, fight and protect Ain in the battle. Then how can I become a second stage student? Now that he has made up his mind, Ace must improve his strength as quickly as possible, so entering the second stage to receive ZFA's guidance is undoubtedly the most effective means. There are two methods. The first one is that after the test at the end of this month, there will be a 1-month task practice, and the students who perform well will be recommended. The second method is the ring battle after the practice, and the students in the first stage will be selected. The strongest one will be admitted directly. What IN said was straightforward. Obviously he had already planned to become a second stage student. After listening to Ain's words carefully, Ace already has a plan. He wants to win the place of the strongest in the ring battle. After eating and resting for a while, Ian went to the kendo gym, while Ace returned to the training ground and started exercising again. Squats, push-ups and pull-ups. Ace felt a little wrong when he practiced. Although he has been doing strength training since his rebirth, and the amount of training has been increasing, there is always a sense of eating his laurels. In the original book, the physical combat of Ace and others can only be regarded as a wild way, a hooligan routine summed up by oneself. Use your own power to the fullest. But now that Ace is reborn, of course the original fighting routines have not been forgotten. But his purpose of joining the Navy was to get systematic training and learn formal fighting skills. In the past 2 days, he was still only exercising in his own way, which had deviated from his original intention. So he had to seek guidance quickly. Thinking of this, Ace no longer hesitated, and asked a burly student beside him who was pushing a barbell. Do the instructors usually not give guidance to the students? This student was disturbed because of the exercise, so he was very unhappy, and his tone was a bit aggressive. The instructors who should talk about it have already talked about it at the beginning. If you want the instructor to make a small talk, you can find him yourself. Ace was stunned. It turned out that he, a transfer student, had missed the beginning of the lecture. After a wry smile, he was going to go directly to Major General Shatton. Wait. You're the transfer student. The one named Ace. The only transfer students who haven't listened to the instructor's lecture, and this time there are only 2 transfer students, so the big guy can easily guess Ace's identity. I am. What's the matter? Ace frowned. It's nothing, I just admired your name for a long time. The big man looked at Ace with a wicked smile, and squeezed his fists. I don't think you should go to the instructor, I will give you good guidance. Ace looked at the big man in astonishment, but he just met him, and he couldn't wait to bully him. Could this be the legendary campus bullying? Seeing this kind of news in his previous life, Ace still couldn't believe it. After all, in his opinion, who would bully his classmates for no reason? But it happened to him like this, he had to sigh. There really are such scumbags. However, the corners of Ace's mouth slanted up and he smiled slightly. He may have bullied the wrong person. Okay. Ace's answer made the big man stunned. He didn't expect that the little kid in front of him would not play the cards according to the routine. Why wasn't he afraid? And because of what happened here, there are already many people around. Is this kid crazy? Doesn't he know the rules of the training base? That's right. Although unreasonable fights are not allowed in the base, as long as both of them agree, the fight will be established. As long as no one is killed, it is okay to lose an arm or a leg. I know that big guy, his name is Zhang Shang. Although his character is not good, his punching strength is almost 600 kilograms. That boy Ace is only less than 300. Could it be that he is looking for death? Hearing the conversation next to him, Zhang Shang was sure that the child in front of him was indeed the last one, so he had nothing to worry about. But they didn't know that there was already a 700-kilogram Poke yesterday, who had broken his arm because he underestimated Ace. There was a grim smile on Zhang Zhang's face. He was gearing up, gesticulating his fists and feet, and said to Ace, "Brother will definitely show you a good demonstration. First of all, it's a straight punch." Whoosh. As soon as the words fell, Zhang Shang rushed towards Ace directly, his right hand clenched into a fist, which was a simple and rough punch. In his opinion, this punch could knock Ace to the ground. Boom. Zhang Shang felt that he had hit the target, but instead, his own forward figure stopped abruptly, and Ace on the opposite side remained motionless. Looking closely, I saw that my fist had already been grabbed by the opponent, and it was firmly blocked in front of the chest. Fisting is okay, but the strength is too weak. Didn't you have lunch? Ace said with a joking smile. In the previous battle with Boka, Ace directly crushed the opponent with strength, but this time he had the opportunity to see how the Navy's fighting skills are, so he continued to stimulate. You look so strong, can't you be a woman? Swish. Zhang Zhang's face turned red all of a sudden. Obviously, although this person has a bad personality, his IQ is really not good, otherwise he must have judged that he is not Ace's opponent. As a result, instead of noticing it, he was slightly stimulated and attacked Ace frantically again. Raindrops of fists and whip legs hit Ace, but Ace's strength and speed exceeded Zhang Zhang's too much, so he was airtight with his palms, and he didn't even take a step. The onlookers on the other side have been staring at the bag for a long time. This Zhang Shang can't really be a woman. Fart, go up and try it. It's not Zhang Shangrua, it's this Ace who is too strong. Isn't this Ace the last one? Looking at it this way, he must have the strength of the top 5. There was a lot of discussion around, but Zhang Shang didn't hear it at all, and continued to attack Ace with red eyes. Snapped. After a while, Zhang Zhang's feet were suddenly grabbed, and Ace seemed to have seen enough, and calmly commented, "Navy's boxing and kicking are indeed unique. Well, I've seen it almost, you can sleep for a while." After finishing speaking, Ace pulled the opponent forward with force, and Zhang Shang staggered and fell towards Ace. Thump. Raising his hand gave Zhang Shang a dizzy blow, he rolled his eyes and passed out, and fell to the ground with a plop. This man's fighting skills are average. It seems that I still have to go to Major General Shatton for advice. Huh. Ace clapped his hands and was talking to himself. Waving. Don't look, there is something to see." After finishing speaking, he walked out of the crowd with his hands behind his back, leaving behind the sound of swallowing saliva. Wow. Looking at the back of Ace going away, there was an uproar, and everyone around understood that Zhang Shang could be easily defeated with Ace. He was really not afraid of any fights, and he really just wanted to see the Navy fight. It's just surgery. Everyone looked at Zhang Shang, who was lying on the ground. His head had already swelled up, and he passed out with his eyes rolled. Everyone's eyes were filled with pity. This is the legendary looking for abuse. Ace, who was looking for Shatton, was actually thinking in his heart that he could easily defeat Zhang Shang, not because of poor naval combat skills, but because the speed and strength gap between the two was too large. Twice as much as the explosion, the pure strength has reached about 1,000 kilograms. In other words, if Ace has mastered naval combat, the power he can exert with a strength of 1,000 kilograms will definitely be different from Zhang Shang. Instructor. Ace's eyes suddenly lit up, and he saw Shatton punching. Obviously, Shatton's boxing technique is the same as Zhang Zhang's, but the movements are smoother and more beautiful, and the sharp whistling sound when the fist is struck makes Ace understand that this is not a show. Boom. A boxing target obviously made of granite in front of Shatton actually shattered in two under his punch. Ace couldn't help but tremble. If he dared to catch the same straight punch, he would probably be broken in half. "Hey, it's time to change the target again," Shatton said helplessly. "Huh. Isn't this Ace? What's the matter?" After Ace and Mondo made a 10-day bet, Shatton's impression of Ace was much better. Although he was not optimistic about Ace, as long as he had a heart to challenge the strong, there was hope of becoming stronger. After today, there are only 9 days left until the end-of-month test. I hope to study hard with Instructor Shatton in these few days. Ace bowed slightly and begged. Shatton was taken aback for a moment and sighed, but finally agreed. Hey, okay. However, he seemed to have misunderstood what Ace meant. In his opinion, Ace would be eliminated after 9 days. He wanted to learn something before leaving the base. Then teach him well, Shatton thought to himself. In the next 9 days, Shatton explained to Ace the basic fighting skills within the Navy, and formulated corresponding methods for exercising his body. This made Esmos suddenly realize that there were indeed many mistakes in the training method he had explored before. After correcting it, Ace was pleasantly surprised to find that the cultivation of the Spirit Fire Essence body art had also improved by leaps and bounds. 9 days passed quickly. During this time, Ace exercised from morning to night almost every day, sweating profusely every day, squeezing the limit of his body. Perhaps because of the nourishment of tempered energy, Ace doesn't have to worry about excessive exercise that will make his body overwhelmed. His physical strength is almost the same every day. This made Shatton have to admire Ace's will. He has never seen a student who can make such great progress every day. Okay, this book is the foundation of swordsmanship. You can read it when you have time. Weapons are still very important before you can develop your armed aura, Shatton said to Ace with a smile. Thank you, instructor. Ace's eyes lit up, and he took the book solemnly with both hands. With this book, his broad-backed sword will no longer be a decoration. Let's go. Today is the end-of-month test, and I can't wait to see how that guy Mundo is crying. Ha 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 ha, Shatton said with a big laugh. Shatton has come to guide Ace's training almost every day these days, so he already has some understanding of Ace's situation, and knows that the previous entrance test is actually not Ace's true level. Ace also showed a confident smile on his face. He was not weak 10 days ago, not to mention that he has made great progress in the past 10 days. On his property panel, the data has changed again. Attributes. Physical fitness, school, 7 spiritual fire essence body art, the first level. Refining energy. 13/60ths Ace's physical strength has risen 3 levels in a row in these 10 days, and has also reached the level of a senior school. That is to say, even without the double explosion of the pure body art, Ace's physical strength has already reached the same level as Drake's. The difference seems to be the same. Outside the test hall of the Naval Training Base, the major general instructors of the 5 units have already led their students to stand in line. Ace's 5th team has the smallest number of people. As the instructor of the 5th team, Shatten was also standing on the edge of the 5 instructors at this time, with a calm expression on his face, appearing calm and collected. Instructor Shatten, you're so determined. I just don't know how many people are left in your team after this monthly test. The second team, Mondo and Shatten, were separated by 2 major general instructors, showing a look of victory, turned their heads to look at this side, and smiled faintly. But Shatten ignored him at all, and turned around to tell the students some precautions, which made the remaining few instructors show strange smiles on their faces. Humph. Mundo laughed angrily. Today, not only do I want to win 1,000 million, but I also want to disgrace this Shatten. Instructors, I have a request. I don't know if you can give me face. Mondo stepped forward and said to several instructors, can one of my students and a student of instructor Shatten go ahead first? Test, I have a bet with you, and please be a witness. Really? Tell me, an instructor asked curiously. It's better to be respectful than to obey. Mundo clasped his fists together, and said his bet with Ace with a little complacency. When they heard that Ace had to pay a bet of 1 million Baileys after losing, all the people present gasped. Mundo, it's not good for you to bet so big with a child, the instructor of the third team said with a complex expression. Mondo heard a hint of envy in his tone, and he was even more proud. Regarding the other party's words, he made a fool of himself. Who is Ace? Come out. The instructor of the first team is obviously a respected old instructor. He frowned and called Ace out, and asked, did you agree to this bet? No one forced you? No, Major General. Ace said with a military salute. Okay. Since that's the case, it's up to you. After finishing speaking, the instructor closed his eyes, apparently not intending to ask any more questions. And Mundo also breathed a sigh of relief, because he knew that if this person objected, the bet would not stand. But now, Mundo seems to see 1 million Pele waving to him. Everyone, after today's event, I will treat everyone to a good meal, Mundo said with a smile. Oh. Instructor Mundo, according to what you said, you are sure to win today. Shatten, who had been silent all this time, finally spoke. Of course, the first pair on the ranking list is the bottom one. Is there any suspense? Mundo looked confident. Shatten took a deep look at Mondo, and slowly said, then Instructor Mondo, dare you to have another small bet with me. If Ace loses, I will give you 50. If Ace wins, how about you give me 50? Several instructors present looked at Shatten in surprise, including the instructor of the first team. They all took a deep look at Shatten. 50 is their annual salary. And Shatten is so confident in this last-to-last ace? Hearing Sutton's words, Mondo's expression froze. He had just been promoted to Major General this year, and his salary in the previous few years was not so high, so before this year's salary came out, his family property was only 60. Why, Instructor Mondo is scared. Seeing Mondo's silence, Shatten smiled. Mondo blushed, then gritted his teeth and said, I'll take it. For Mundo, it can be said that he lost his fortune and fought his last battle. Drake, go. Let them see your strength. Drake walked out of the team in response, but Ace could see that Mundo ignored Drake's wishes and regarded it as a bet, which made him very disgusted with Mundo. Let's go too. Shatten led Ace into the testing hall. Stay where you are, don't make any noise. The remaining major generals arranged for the students, and then they all walked in together. Among the crowd, there are a few people who have special eyes. In, with blue hair, looked worried and clenched his fists nervously. Polka, who was still wearing a bandage, stared at Ace's back with resentment and sneered. His brother was coming back today, and this nasty boy would finally have his revenge. In addition, it was a sea soldier with a figure of nearly 2 meters and curly blonde hair. It was Gaspardi, who was the number 1 on the original ranking list. Fudge is real. Wait until the group arena match in a month later, you guys will have a good time. In the test hall, all the machines have been debugged, and Ace and Drake also stood in front of the strength test machine, facing each other. Shatten. Why don't you let Ace come first? I'm afraid that after Drake finishes the test, he will be too scared to test, ha 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 ha. Mundo is as annoying as ever. Drake ignored Mundo's words at this time and walked directly onto the strength testing machine. His own students didn't give him face at all, so that Mondo's laughter stopped abruptly, like a duck being choked by the throat. Drake didn't care about Mundo's thoughts, and put on a posture. Horse step. Turn around, punch, all in one go. Boom. The moment the fist touched the target shook violently, followed by a beeping sound from the machine. 1396 kilogram, and Mondo, who was originally livid because he was ignored by Drake, put a smug smile on his face again after seeing this data. In these 10 days, Drake actually increased his punching power by more than 200 kilograms. Juan. Well, I'll give you 3 chances, so you won't say I bullied you, Mondo said to Ace with a fake smile. As soon as he said such shameless words, several instructors at the scene showed contemptuous expressions. The strength of the body is as much as it needs to be, and it will not change much no matter how many times it is tested. The data of 1400 kilograms is rare in the history of our first stage training camp. The instructor of the first team sighed, it's a good seed. Yes, this kid named Ace is miserable. Obviously, several instructors present were not optimistic about Ace. Even Shatton was a little unsure when he saw Drake hit 1400 kilograms. After all, the Major General's entry strength is only 2000 kilograms. Ace didn't know what the instructors were thinking. When he heard that Mundo was going to give him 3 chances, his eyes lit up immediately. After all, Drake's grades are really good. He was hesitating whether to use the Spirit Fire Essence body art directly to explode twice the strength, and Mundo provided him with a solution. Since there are 3 chances, why not? Okay, thank you, Instructor Mondo, Ace said with a slanted smile. Mondo's smile froze. He didn't expect Ace to actually climb the pole, but since he had already said it, of course he couldn't go back on his word. HMPH, start now. Ace didn't say any more, and stepped onto the strength tester. Clenched a fist, took a deep breath, fixed his eyes, and punched it. Boom. There was also a roar, and Mondo on the side suddenly trembled in his heart, and quickly looked at the screen. 1189 kilogram, call, let out a sigh of relief. This Ace has really hidden his strength, but fortunately, Drake is stronger. There was a smirk on Mundo's face. Haha, we won. Not yet, Instructor Mondo, I still have 2 more chances. Ace's flat voice came, and Mondo's face suddenly turned purple. Regardless of Mundo's panic in the back, Ace stood up again. He knew that his strength hadn't been fully utilized just now, so he was going to try it again with his own strength without using the body trick first. Anyway, there are 3 chances, so it doesn't hurt to try again. Taking a deep breath to calm down, he carefully recalled the boxing skills Shatton taught him these days. A moment later, Ace stood with his waist down, his feet gripping the ground firmly like tree roots, and then, his calves exerted force suddenly, his body turned slightly, and a powerful force burst out from his waist and abdomen, passing in one by one up the arm. The fist was like an arrow shot out, and with an afterimage, it hit the target with a bang. The moment the fist was punched, there was already a gleam of joy on Ace's face, and this punch showed his true strength. In an instant, everyone's eyes were focused on the display screen. 1398 kilogram, 2 kilograms more. It seems that I really have to thank Instructor Mundo for the 3 chances. Ace smiled slightly and cupped his fists at Mundo. Mondo was so angry that his teeth were itchy. He was so cheap, why did he give him 3 chances? Huh. Don't be too happy, there are still 2 tests, Mundo insisted. As a result, after 5 minutes, Drake, 27.6 meters per second. Ace, 27.9 meters per second. Everyone at the scene was speechless, and every time they were a little taller, it was on purpose, right? Ace also touched his nose with a strange expression, and he didn't know why it was such a coincidence. Mondo's face turned pale, and he felt as if he had fallen into a trap, but at this moment he still comforted himself. It's okay. There is another test, and I will definitely win. After losing twice in a row, Drake also realized that Ace's strength was not weaker than him at this time. His expression became serious, and he put aside his resistance to the bet. Ace, I admit that you can be my opponent, but I won't lose. Ace looked at the trace of war in Drake's eyes, smiled, noncommittal. Drake stepped onto the last machine, and this time he was very serious. Facing the rain of rubber balls, Drake's 5 senses were used to the extreme, and his body kept moving rapidly and in small increments. Wipe to the corner of his clothes. Drop. After the test, Drake's body was already wet with sweat. Obviously, this action was not as easy as it seemed. 99 points. Drake took a breath, with a satisfied smile on his face, looked at Ace with fiery eyes, and then walked to the instructors. Very good, the perception is close to perfect. The instructor of the first team said with admiration on his face, you can awaken the domineering colors soon. Shatton also nodded at this time, and he did not hesitate to praise his opponent. When you can get rid of the 5 senses and use the 6th sense to sense the movements of the surrounding objects, your knowledge and arrogance will truly awaken. When Ace heard this, his mind suddenly became clear. It turns out that this is the essence of knowledge. Ha ha ha. At this moment, Mondo laughed out loud again. His physical reaction to achieve such a result is basically invincible among the students in the first stage. Give up, unless you can get points, otherwise how win? You should know that in the distribution criteria of the total score, the proportion of physical responsibility is the highest. So after listening to Mundo's words, there was no instructor to refute this time. Unless Ace also scored more than 99 points, he was indeed a loser. But Ace just shrugged indifferently. How will you know if you don't try? After speaking, he walked slowly onto the reaction tester. Click. Click. The launcher of the tester spun rapidly, and the rubber balls shot wildly seemed to have completely sealed Ace's body. But this time, Ace's body was obviously able to keep up with his thinking, and the trajectory of the rubber ball clearly appeared in his mind, and he dodged the most dangerous bullets by leaning back. 100 rubber balls were fired in a short time, but there was nothing under Ace's feet, indicating that no small ball hit him at all. Drop. What? 100 points, how is it possible? Mundo was shocked, and an angry voice sounded behind him. Call. With a long breath, Ace also seemed a little proud. It seems that I am lucky. Little devil, you are playing with me. Mundo roared, his eyes were red, and he gritted his teeth. No matter how stupid he was, he knew at this moment that he had fallen into Ace's trap. Thinking of not only becoming a laughing stock, but also going bankrupt, Mondo was furious, and with a movement of his body, he rushed to Ace on the tester, and shot with anger. The muscles on his arms were so high that they even tore through his clothes. The strong wind brought by Mundo's fist rushed towards his face, and Ace's face changed, and the spirit fire essence was about to explode in his body. But just a second ago, Shatten, who had been vigilant all the time, suddenly appeared in front of Ace. His fists were filled with arrogance, and he beat Mundo back upside down with a single encounter. Mundo. You can't afford to lose. The deep voice was unusually cold. Shatten. Mondo's face was ashen. Although he was extremely angry, he knew that he was not Shatten's opponent. He turned around and looked at the other instructors as if asking for help. Okay. We will abide by the bet that we have made. The words of the old instructor of the first team made Mondo completely give up. With a gloomy face and killing intent in his eyes, Mondo gave Ace a sharp look, turned and left. Ace just smiled and didn't care. This person has been targeting himself, just to teach him a little lesson. Instructor Mundo, don't forget the 50 Bailey bet. Shatten's words made Mondo stagger again, and he walked even faster. Well, you two are very good, keep working hard. The old instructor was very relieved to see that 2 good seedlings had emerged this year. Yes. Ace responded respectfully, then smiled and looked at Drake. According to the bet, he is also a student of the 5th team. Don't worry, I will go with you later. However, this does not mean that I admit that I am weaker than you. Drake is obviously still a bit dissatisfied, but he is a man of agreement. Ha 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 ha. From now on, you are all my people. Shatten hugged the two of them, and smiled very happily. He actually got the biggest benefit today. The results of Ace and Drake can be said to be the first and second in the monthly test. With the addition of Miss Ain, after the 5th team, there will be 3 top 10, and the number has tripled at once. In addition to the bet, he won 50 yuan from Mundo for no reason, and Shatten's mouth was already grinning to the bottom of his ears. Ace grinned at Shatten's embrace, and his head was full of black lines when he heard his words, so he prepared to trick the instructor without hesitation. You don't need to thank me too much, just treat me and Drake to a melee. By the way, bring Ain. Shatten's smile froze on his face. A meal was 3 Baileys, and 4 meals were 12. My heart is bleeding. Okay. After the test in the morning, I will take you there at noon. Shatten gritted his teeth and agreed. Brat. Derek on the side saw such a harmonious teacher-student relationship, but he didn't realize it himself, and a smile appeared on the corner of his mouth unconsciously. Next, one morning later, Ain also finished the test. Although his results were not as good as Ace and Drake's, he still couldn't run in the top 10. As soon as it was over, the 3 of them took Shatten and went straight to the cafeteria. What made Shatten dumbfounded was that he obviously made a mistake in his calculation. A meal is not a serving. Except that Ain ate less and only ate 1 portion. Ace ate 3 servings by himself, and Drake also turned his grief and anger into food, and ate 3 servings with his cheeks open. 25 is gone. Sardin wants to cry. After eating and drinking enough, Shatten went back to supervise the afternoon test with tears in his heart. Drake proposed to let Ace move to the luxury apartment equipped for number 1. In Ace's view, it doesn't matter where he lives. But Drake was very stubborn and said, according to the regulations, it is yours, so you should take it away. However, I will take it back with my own strength. Ace didn't expect Drake to be a brainless person, so he couldn't help him, so he agreed to take a look. To be honest, he was also a little curious about the difference between the treatment of elite students and ordinary students. The apartment building and the ordinary dormitory building are not together. The 3 of them walked east after passing the dormitory building. According to Drake, most of the apartment buildings lived in the second stage students. However, as soon as they reached the apartment building, the 3 of them were stopped before they could go upstairs. The visitor was also wearing a navy uniform. He was slender and about 1.8 meters tall. The most striking thing was that he had a samurai sword with a blue scabbard pinned to his waist. This is a second stage student. The first stage students in the base wear blue scarves around their necks, while the second stage students wear green scarves. After seeing Ace, the man showed a haughty look on his face and walked straight over. "What's up?" Facing the person coming, Ace asked calmly. Although it seemed that this person came with bad intentions, Ace was not afraid. After all, this place was still in the base, so he was safe. But what surprised Ace was that the strange sea soldier in front of him really dared to provoke. "You are the first stage transfer student, the last trash? It seems to be called Ace?" The man's aggressive tone made Ace very puzzled. He didn't remember when he offended a second stage student. Ace thought quickly. And many more. Ace suddenly remembered that 10 days ago, when Poka came to make trouble, he beat him up in the dormitory, broke one of his arms, and snatched a sharp knife from Poka. At that time, Poka said that he had an older brother who was a second stage student. "Are you Poka's brother?" Ace didn't answer the question, but asked back. There was a flash of surprise in the man's eyes. Obviously he didn't expect Ace to guess his identity. "My name is Baranka. Listen carefully. You have broken one of my brother's arms and my favorite knife, so keep your 2 arms." Balanka's tone was very flat, as if Ace should do as he said. Ace's eyes widened. "I'm afraid this person is a fool, who would cut off his own arm. You are too arrogant." It was Drake who was talking, and his face was very ugly. Baranka said that Ace was a waste? Then what is he? Not as good as a waste. Who are you? If you provoke me, you will have to pay the price. There was a hint of anger on Baranka's face, and there was another person who dared to contradict him. He didn't say any more, and he raised his fist directly at Drake. And Derek was also very confident, not to be outdone, and greeted him with a punch. Pung. Puff. Drake flew upside down with disbelief on his face, his right arm was convulsed, and he was spitting out blood. Dodging forward, he hugged Drake, feeling the power coming from him, and Ace's face became serious. To be able to punch Drake like this, at least the strength of a major general. "It's all right. I'm fine, this man is very strong," Drake said weakly, swallowing the blood in his mouth. "Ain. Go to Instructor Shatton quickly." Instead of responding to Drake, Ace put him on the ground and said to Ain. Ain also knew that this was not the time to be brave, so he glanced at the two worriedly and said, "Be careful." Then he gritted his teeth and ran towards the testing hall as fast as he could. "Trash is trash. Do you think you can survive until your instructor comes over?" Balanka looked at the two people in front of him leisurely, and said with a sneer. Hearing this, Drake struggled to stand up again. Ace pressed his body, gave him a reassuring look, and said, "Leave it to me." Drake didn't know where Ace's confidence came from. After all, the strength of the two was almost the same, but he couldn't stand up at this moment, so he could only watch Ace stand in front of him. I will tell you that courage is meaningless in the face of real strength. As soon as Baranka finished speaking, he punched him directly again. In his opinion, Ace would definitely be injured and vomit blood like Drake, and fly backwards. But in the face of Balanka, who was approaching rapidly, Ace finally stopped hiding his clumsiness. As soon as he thought about it, the Spirit Fire Essence body technique was running crazily, and the purple fire burst out from his body. Ace's skin turned red, and white steam rose from it. Twice the power. What about the Major General? Ace retracted his arms to his abdomen, clenched his fists, and then punched hard. Boom. The two fists collided head-on, and the roar sounded instantly. More than 2,000 kilograms is the strength that can be exerted by a Major General's physical strength, and Ace has blasted out nearly 3,000 kilograms of strength at this moment. What's more, Ace's fist still has the temperature of purple fire. The moment the two fists collided, Balanka's face changed drastically. The skin on his fist was burned directly, so he subconsciously retracted his fist. But how could Ace's power be vegetarian? Baranka was horrified. Although he resisted with all his strength, he was still punched back. This is impossible. Although Baranka has already known from his younger brother that Ace is extremely powerful, but how strong can it be? His strength has reached the level of a Major General. And what's the matter with the temperature on this kid's fist? At this moment, Ace, even though he punched Baranka away, didn't feel any relief in his heart, because he felt that Baranka was not injured at all. This guy is really strong. You know, even a top school level character, his arm must have been broken by Ace's punch. But this guy just had a little skin on his fist. And this guy must be a swordsman. Ace looked at the samurai sword on Baranka's waist, and became more vigilant in his heart. Hateful. When the figure stopped, Balanka's anger rushed to the top of his head. Coupled with the fact that some students are gradually attracted by the sound here, and they poked their heads out from the apartment building to look this way. Belanca felt even more hot on his face. Belanca didn't even draw his sword, but stomped on his feet and continued to charge forward with punches. He wanted to use physical skills to defeat the kid in front of him, defeat him from his strongest point, and let Ace know what despair is. When Ace saw that Veronica still wanted to compete with him in pure physical skills, a sneer appeared on the corner of his mouth. If the opponent uses a knife, he can only turn around and run away with Drake on his back. But by fist, I can't beat myself. He has been hiding his strength. Is there such a big gap between me and him? Drake was lying on the side, his face full of surprise and loss. If Ace had used this strength before, he would have failed miserably. Is it to protect my face? Drake had a complicated expression, not knowing whether to be angry or grateful. At this moment, Ace has collided with Belanca again. Belanca's fighting skills are indeed better than Ace's, but Esmondo's attack by Belanca does not dodge or dodge at all, but fights head-on with stronger strength. Want to attack from the side? Give you a punch. Around the back? Give you another punch. Belanca's face was very ugly, although Ace had already had a few scars on his body because of his attack. But it was obvious that he himself was even worse. For some reason, this kid had a high temperature in his fist. Every time he hit Belanca, his body would be burned. Facing the figure rushing towards Ace, Belanca no longer fought hard, but let out a sneer. Shave. In the next moment, Belanca's figure suddenly disappeared in front of Ace's eyes, and there was only a gradually expanding air circle left in place. 6 styles. Naval taijutsu mysteries. Ace's pupils shrank, and immediately a strong sense of crisis flooded his heart. Turning his head suddenly, he found that Veronica had appeared behind him in an instant, and then there was a sneer. Finger gun. Belanca's index finger suddenly became extremely hard, aiming at Ace's chest, and slammed out at a speed comparable to a real bullet. At a critical juncture, the scene of the physical reaction test suddenly appeared in Ace's mind. Subconsciously, he regarded Veronica's finger gun as a rubber ball that was shot, and the trajectory of his fingers appeared in his mind, and his body suddenly fell to the lower left following his consciousness. The moment he dodged the finger gun, Ace's eyes flashed, and he punched Veronica's chest. Boom. What? Belanca never expected that Ace could dodge his finger gun. His body flew upside down, and blood even flowed from the corner of his mouth. Da da da. Veronica looked horrified, and took several steps back after landing. The burning pain in his chest made him unable to stand still for a while. With a plop, he fell to the ground. The scene fell silent. Then, there was an uproar from the crowd of onlookers. How can it be? Belanca is a second-stage student, and he is considered an elite among the second-stage students. To be beaten by a child who looked only 10 years old, and even vomited blood. Belanca fell to the ground and even forgot to get up for a while, with disbelief on his face. He was knocked down to the ground. What a humiliation. Damn. Damn. I'm going to kill you. His heart was filled with anger and madness, and Veronica no longer ignored the rules of the base. He jumped up and pulled out the samurai sword from his waist. Base. There was a sword cry, and the edge of the blade shone with a cold light, and Belanca rushed over with the knife. I found a good knife, and I suggest that the host seize it. Ace was taken aback by the sudden sound from the system, and then he showed a wry smile. His life is in danger. Okay, the knife that snatches wool. Belanca held a knife in his hand, and his momentum was completely different. He was obviously a naval swordsman who focused on using the knife. In an instant, he was close to Ace's body, and he was about to decapitate Ace with a single blow. Not good. Belanca is crazy. With the power of his swordsmanship, how can this child live? And Ace's complexion changed drastically. He was not armed with a domineering look. How could he use flesh and blood to deal with the sharp samurai sword? Just when he gritted his teeth and was about to block the blade with his arm. Suddenly. White fist. Swoosh, a figure covered in white smoke suddenly appeared in front of Ace, holding a 10-handed sword in his hand, and with a thud, he held Belanca's samurai sword. Ace quickly took the opportunity to step back and took a sharp breath. Almost died. Belanca. Fighting without reason is prohibited in the base. You want this child to die. The voice was very cold. The white smoke gradually spun and merged, one with 2 cigars in his mouth, and a white-haired sailor stepped out of the smoke and appeared in front of everyone. It's Smoker. Then the child is saved. Well, Smoker has always been at odds with Veronica, and it's impossible to let Veronica mess around. Smog is a devil fruit-capable user, and he is the strongest nature type. Hearing the name, Ace immediately remembered who the sailor in front of him was with his shirt open and his chest exposed. Smoker. Luffy's rival in the future, the smoke man who owns the smoke fruit of the natural devil fruit, has long heard that he is also a student of Zephyr, but he did not expect to see him so soon. Seeing Smoker blocking him, Belanca's anger was gradually suppressed by him. He hadn't cultivated the domineering aura yet, and he had nothing to do with Smoker, who was a naturalist. I think this kid looks like a pirate who sneaked into the base, and I want to arrest him for interrogation. I'll go. Open your eyes and talk nonsense. Everyone around was stunned by his shamelessness. Oh? That's right, it's better to hand it over to the base chief for interrogation first. Smoker was a little puzzled, turned to look at Ace and said. Believe it. The people around were dumbfounded. There are also a few black lines on Ace's head. When he watched the One Piece anime before, he wondered why Smoker was not weak, so why was he only a colonel at the beginning? But now it seems that not only does this guy often disobey the orders of his superiors, but he also doesn't turn his head very well, so it's no wonder he can be promoted. Haha. Okay, I'll bring him to the officer now. Veronica walked towards Ace while talking, but the murderous intent in his eyes did not disappear. As long as it fell into his hands, he would not let him need him when he turned around. Anyway, after today, it will be the first stage of the student's mission practice. As long as I take him out on missions, if he dies in the hands of the pirates, can I be blamed? Everyone around gave Ace a look of pity, but that was all. In today's world where pirates act fiercely, if hundreds or thousands of sailors don't die one day, they won't stand up for a strange boy. Just when Veronica approached Ace again and wanted to catch him first. Suddenly there was a loud roar. I'll see who dares to touch my students. Shave. Sutton finally arrived. The next moment, Shatton, who was still 10 meters away, stood in front of Ace. His cloak danced wildly with the wind, and a circle of white air slowly dissipated. Belanca's face became even uglier. This kid's instructor turned out to be Shatton, and he was an elite major general. And from Shatton's tone, Ace turned out to be his proud disciple. Isn't he a little guy? It seems that it is impossible to deal with Ace today. The discussions from the people around him also reached Shatton's ears, and his face darkened. You say my student is a pirate? Is this child a student of Instructor Shatton? Smoker frowned while holding a cigar, and looked at Belanca at this time. Veronica, you knew it before? Are you kidding me? The two major generals were standing on the opposite side of Belanca at the same time, and he couldn't help but change his face slightly, and said forcefully. Since it's a misunderstanding, forget it. At this moment, Drake's injury is also better. Holding his arm, got up and stood beside Ace. Forget it. Ace had already withdrawn from the state of pure body art at this time, a little weak, but he still supported Drake on one side, and asked in a playful tone. Look at my brother's injury, and my injury. Treatment fee, nutrition fee, do you want to keep some of it? Huh. Belanca was furious again, but the situation was stronger than others. If he didn't handle it well at this moment, he would even be expelled. So he could only hold back his anger, gritted his teeth and said, what do you say? I warn you, don't go too far. Just 50 Baileys. Ace Lion said loudly. Fart. Belanca's eyes were red. I'll give you 100,000 at most. 40 million. 20 million. 30 million. Impossible. Up to 25. Belanca had already drawn out his knife. Deal. Ace smiled, turned to Shatton and said, Instructor, I'll leave it to you to collect the money. Oh. Oh. Shatton was stunned by the rapidly changing situation, so he made another 25 yuan? Belanca was already itching with hatred, but knew that he must not go back on his word, so he gave Ace a hard look with murderous eyes, and turned his head to leave. But at this moment, Ace spoke again. He called to Belanca. And many more. Belanca turned around abruptly. The anger in his eyes caused the passers-by to shudder. Deceiving too much. But Ace's next words calmed him down. 3 months later, if you dare to fight with me, life and death will be decided. Brother Ace. Ian had also arrived at this time, with his beautiful short sea blue hair stuck to his neck from the sweat from running. Ace looked at the anxiety in Ian's eyes, felt a little distressed, but still gave her a confident look, and said, It's okay, trust me, brother. Ace made this decision after deliberation. 3 months is enough for his strength to take another big step, and as long as Belanca agrees to a duel, he will not make some small moves against him during this period. In this way, at least for the past 3 months, Ace has lost a major general-level enemy. Okay. Veronica showed a cruel smile. How could he not agree to the opportunity to kill Ace openly? I promise. After finishing speaking, he turned around and left. He decided to use the knife directly next time to let this ignorant kid know what despair is. After Veronica left, Smoker also patted Ace on the shoulder with a cigarette in his mouth. Dueling is allowed within the Navy, so he couldn't help the kid in front of him. Go home and say goodbye to your family. After speaking, he turned into a puff of smoke and floated into the apartment building. When Ace heard this, the corner of his mouth twitched a few times. What is farewell? This is too unlucky. Hey, kid. Shatton was about to say something when he was interrupted by Ace. Instructor. Don't say anything, I'm hungry again, let's go for meal. Sutton shuddered. My wife Ben, the naval training base, as a piece of news came out, suddenly exploded. Hey. Have you heard? I heard that our bottom to last student openly engaged in a fight with the second stage student Barranca, saying that he would fight to the death within 3 months. Who doesn't know? Isn't it the boy of Ace? I heard that he broke the arm of Barranca's younger brother Poca. Forget it. After the monthly test this time, Ace is number 1 on the ranking list. That's just the number 1 among the first stage students. What is it? Do you know how strong this Barranca is? I heard that one person killed Jess the Ripper with one knife a while ago. That pirate with a bounty of 9 million Baileys. Then Barranca must have the strength of a major general. Hey, poor boy. The news spread all over the base unknowingly, and almost everyone was not optimistic about Ace. But at this moment, the person involved has already returned to the apartment, leisurely eating the barbecue of Neptune. Phew, I'm full. Today's meal is delicious, and it can be packed. Ace said while pressing the sofa under his buttocks. When he pressed it, he made a dent, and then slowly bounced it up. And the environment in this apartment is really good, no wonder everyone is desperately trying to become stronger. Sure enough, strength determines living conditions, which is the criterion of One Piece world. Derek on the side also patted his belly, and fell down on the soft sofa with a strange look on his face. He doesn't care about the living conditions and reputation among the privileges of ranking first. The only thing he valued was 3 free meals a month. After all, this was something that could improve his strength. But just today, Drake has eaten 5 meals a. Suddenly I feel that it's not bad to follow Ace, and Ace is so strong. Drake was taken aback by his own thoughts, and quickly looked at the 2 people around him, only to find that they were not paying attention to him, so he exhaled. Why are you still eating? In on the side didn't eat, but looked at Ace worriedly, with tears in his eyes. There are rumors outside that my brother must lose. Brother won't lose, if you don't believe me, asked Drake. Ace pointed to his side. Although Drake knew that he had lost before, he still wanted to get angry now. But when he thought of the major general level strength that Ace had just exploded, he was immediately discouraged. I'm not your opponent now. Although Drake looked uncomfortable on the surface, taking advantage of Ace's inattention, he grabbed the last meal and devoured it hungrily. There was no disappointment on his face, it was clearly planned, with a triumphant smile. Ace's hand stretched out to the table froze. The two formed a friendship because of the battle just now, but the feud of grabbing food is irreconcilable. Give me back my food. Ace rushed forward with a roar. On the other hand, In laughed out loud because of the fight between the two, alleviating some of the worries in his heart. The next day, at 6 o'clock in the morning, Ace got up from the soft bed and stretched himself, only to find that his period of weakness had not passed. With a wry smile, he murmured. The bed in this apartment is comfortable, but yesterday I used the Kui body art for a long time, and it may take a day to recover. Jumping on the spot twice, Ace opened the door and walked out. Good morning. Facing him was Ain, who had already washed up. His wet hair was still wet, it looked like he had taken a shower. Ace stared blankly. The little girl is very cute. He quickly shook his head, shaking his distracting thoughts away. Well, good morning. This apartment has 3 bedrooms and 1 living room, so Ace simply let Drake and Ian live there. After washing up, Ace suddenly found that Drake had gone out, and asked with some doubts. Aren't you going to listen to the instructor explain the internship tasks today? Why did he go out so early? It seems to be training. In replied while putting on his shoes. Ace was taken aback when he heard this. It was too much effort. It seems that yesterday's incident stimulated him a bit. After touching his nose, Ace's eyes turned serious. You can't relax yourself. The life and death confrontation with Barranca 3 months later, and Edward Wable, who will come at an unknown time, based on his current strength, he will definitely die sooner or later. Taking a deep breath, Ace has thrown away all the slack thoughts. Let's go. Let's see the instructor. When the two of Ace arrived at the agreed meeting point, besides Drake, more than a dozen students had already arrived. After they saw Ace, they couldn't help whispering together. Obviously they all knew what happened yesterday. Ace is now number 1 on the charts, so they dare not comment loudly. But Ace could still vaguely hear some words. The words are basically overestimate, arrogant, and dead. It seems that most people think that Ace will die in the duel with Barranca. Ace doesn't care either. Although these people are elites, they are just some high-level cannon fodder, so there is no need to care about their words. So Ace was just chatting with Drake and Ian while waiting for Instructor Shatton. After another 15 minutes or so, Instructor Shatton finally came. Quiet, line up. Shatton stood in front of everyone, and ordered with a serious expression. I think everyone has discovered that many students in our first team have been eliminated. Ace looked around and found that there were originally more than 30 students, but now there are only about 20 left. But there is also good news. Our first team now has 3 top 10 players. Shatton pointed to the 3 of Ace, but he obviously didn't want to look at Ace directly. Thinking of them eating 40 yesterday, the corners of his mouth twitched. Slight twitch. And the surrounding students also cast envious or jealous eyes on them. Okay, today I will mainly explain to you the tasks for the next month. Shatton adjusted his expression and explained. There are 2 types of internships. One is garrison tasks. As the name suggests, you will be assigned to go to a naval base in the 4 seas and assist the local defenders to eliminate some local novice pirates, because the enemy is very weak, so it is relatively safe. Speaking of this, Shatton looked at the students and continued. But if you choose this kind of task, then you will never get the chance to enter the second stage of study. When Ace heard this, he immediately ruled out this kind of mission. He didn't come here for safety. And the second is to follow a major general and destroy the famous pirate group on the Great Route. If you perform well during this period, you will get a chance to be recommended, but... Shatton paused for a moment, and then said, different from the first type of mission, the target pirates for this type of mission are all provided by naval intelligence agencies, and the captain's bounty is at least over 10 million, so during the battle, you or very may die. The students were suddenly in a commotion, because after studying for this period of time, they already knew the general relationship between the pirate's strength and the bounty. School level. 2 million 1 million Major General, 1 million 2 million. Lieutenant General, 2 million 5 million. This division is not an absolute standard, but it is enough to explain the problem. A pirate with a bounty of 2 million is an enemy at the level of a Major General. Although he will be dealt with by his own chief, but who knows if he will be affected by the aftermath of their battle, it will be dead. Immediately, a group of people retreated. Now, please step forward for the students who choose the second task. Shatton was not in a hurry, and ordered after the students finished thinking. Ace, Drake. The 2 stepped forward without hesitation and smiled at each other. I will go too. Ain, who is usually timid, even chose the second type of task. In the end, only 7 people chose the second type of task. After all, for most people, even if they choose the second type of mission, they still cannot get a recommended quota, so it is better to be safe and save their own lives first. Immediately, Shatton asked these 7 people to stay, and the rest of them disbanded where they were, and went back to wait for arrangements. Okay, you will follow me for the next month. Shatton looked at the students in front of him and smiled. These are the only students in this batch of students who can be cultivated. Ace's heart moved, hearing what Shatton meant. He was the Major General who took them out to sea to suppress thieves. That's good too. Sarton's people are nice and strong, so you don't have to worry about meeting an unreliable officer during your internship. Next, I will go to the intelligence department to select the target pirate group. At that time, I will be in charge of the captain of the pirate group, and you will be responsible for solving their cadres. Do you understand me? Shatton said seriously. Understood. The students replied in unison. Okay. Go back and prepare. We will gather at the port in the evening. There will be a warship to take us out. Shatton turned and left after speaking. At this time, the staff of the intelligence department of the training base were very busy. The real-time information is very important, so the information of the pirate group for the base students to practice has just arrived this morning, and the information of a total of 9 pirate groups needs to be sorted out quickly. This Gruss is too inhuman. A young sailor held up the documents in his hand, his face flushed with anger. Are you talking about that Gruss who is nicknamed the Hanged Ghost? Another person asked. I heard that he likes to hang his captives by gallows, but these pirates are notorious, so you don't need to be so excited. No. This guy seems to be crazy recently. He attacked 3 passenger ships, left no one alive, and even took away the corpses. It's crazy. The young sailor shook the information in his hand vigorously. This is a scumbag. When the people around heard this, they couldn't help being shocked, and they all showed angry expressions, wishing that this hateful pirate would be arrested immediately and sentenced to death. Even for lawless pirates, such vicious people are extremely rare. But when they saw the bounty of 5 million on the reward order, they couldn't help being discouraged. If I go, it can only be regarded as delivering food. Let me see. A thick, big hand stretched out from behind the young sailor and took the documents. Major General. Everyone was startled, seeing that it was 2 major generals who came. They hurriedly saluted. It was Shatton who stretched out his hand, and the other major general was Mondo. He just gave Shatton a bet of 50 yuan, and his face was extremely ugly. Shatton looked carefully at Gruss information. Although his face was calm, his heart was already filled with anger. To be honest, some of the pirates in this era are forced by life, and some are chasing their dreams. For these people, Shatton feels that everyone just has a different standpoint. Even if they are opposed, some of the pirates' behaviors are even worthy of his admiration. But the hanged Gruss in front of him is a pure scum, killing civilians? Only deserves to be hacked into pieces. This pirate group, I want it. Shatton's tone was calm, but everyone present seemed to feel his anger, and a wordless aura enveloped the audience. Yes. The young sailor's face showed joy just now, and the entire staff of the naval base knew that Rear Admiral Shatton was the best among all the instructors, and if he made a move, Gruss would definitely be killed. Helping Shatton complete the formalities as quickly as possible, everyone watched Shatton leave with reverent eyes. Except, of course, Mundo. His eyes were still full of resentment. Show me the rest of the information, Mundo said to the staff angrily. He is now bankrupt, so although he doesn't want to, he can only risk his life and go out to earn subsidies. Blue blue blue. But at this moment, the emergency phone bug on the desk suddenly rang. Hello. The young sailor answered the phone. The latest information, the figure of the beheaded Austin appeared in the hanged pirates. Please increase the difficulty level of this task, the intelligence officer on the opposite side said. Ah. Hai Bing was startled. The hanged pirates are Gruss's pirates, and the beheaded Austin's bounty is also 2 million, which means that there are now 2 major general-level enemies in this pirate group, which has exceeded the number of trainees. The difficulty level of the task. I have to inform Major General Shatton as soon as possible. The young sailor didn't want to harm Major General Shatton. And many more. Mondo stopped the sailor and asked with a smile, do you know where to find Admiral Sutton? This. He really didn't know. Don't worry. I'll leave it to me to inform Major General Shatton, and I'll definitely let him call another Major General. Mondo looked righteous. If it doesn't work, I'll go with him, and I will. Seeing this, Gruss is not pleasing to the eye. Go back and sort out the information. Other generals still need to use it. Good. Good. The young sailor hesitated, but when he saw that Mondo had really gone out, he turned around and continued to sort out the materials. Mondo walked out of the intelligence department, turned a corner, and seeing no one around, he burst out laughing, with a bitter smile on his face. God help me, both of you, go to hell. Of course he would not remind Shatton. He wished that both Shatton and Ace died outside. He had been struggling with no way to retaliate before, but when he fell asleep, someone gave him a pillow. Unexpectedly such a good thing happened. I can't blame me if I died in the hands of the pirates, Mundo said to himself, and then walked to his dormitory. He didn't go to accept the mission anymore, he just waited for the good news that Shatton and Ace were killed. Information. Because Mundo was in the way, Shatton did not receive the news that the target had changed, so he did not know the crisis he would face this time. When the sun was about to set, he arrived at the port as planned. At this time, the 7 people including Ace had already packed their things and lined up there. And a warship has already docked in the port, and the supply has been completed before everyone comes, and Ace and others will take this warship to pass through the windless zone and directly enter the Great Route. Leading the crowd onto the warship, Shatton set his sights on Ace and the others. Our opponent this time is the hanged pirates. The captain hangs the Ghost Gruss with a bounty of 5 million Baileys. Gold is 2 million Pele, 4.5 million Pele and 6 million Pele, and they are your opponents. After briefly introducing the situation of the hanged pirates, Shatton's expression became more serious than ever. Please pay attention, your opponent this time is a vicious pirate, a mortal enemy who is fighting for life and death, and is no longer with you. Companions to learn from each other, so you must go all out when you make a move. Yes. Although he heard the affirmative answers from the students, and the 7 people in front of him are also the elite among the students, Shatton understands that when facing a real battle for the first time, strength alone is not enough, and there must be someone who will die at any time. Consciousness. He has seen too many new recruits. The first time he fought a pirate, he was so nervous that he couldn't hold the sword in his hand, but was pierced through the head by the enemy instead. As if feeling that the students' fighting spirit was not strong enough, Shatton said again, you may not have a concept of the cruelty of this pirate group. Let me give you a number. 534. This is the number they killed in the last 3 months' number of civilians. The warship suddenly fell silent, and everyone was shocked by this number, and then, anger burned in everyone's chest. Kill civilians? There is such a devil. Okay, put away all your anger, and vent it all on those scumbags. Remember, they are not worth keeping. Finally, I hope that after a month, you can come back with me one by one. Set off. Seeing that the goal had been achieved, Shatton waved his hand. Yes. Ace and the others suddenly agreed. According to the latest information, the hanged pirates are currently wandering in the first half of the Great Route, between the 7 Waters capital and the Chambord Islands. Therefore, Ace's warship needs to sail at sea for a week to get there. Of course, Ace will not waste this time. Daily exercise is essential. At this moment, after finishing a set of basic naval boxing, Ace took out the basic naval swordsmanship that Shatton had given him earlier. After the battle with Barranca, Ace has also realized that before he can exercise his armed domineering, it is better to have a knife in his hand to be more reliable. Opening the book and briefly browsing through the contents, Ace couldn't help but shine. Although the title of the book contains the word basic, Ace prefers to call it the essence of swordsmanship. The author summarizes swordsmanship into 8 movements: hacking, slashing, stabbing, teasing, blocking, sweeping, and horizontal. The movements are combined with various basic agility to form the essence of this swordsmanship. Although there are no complicated and fancy moves, Ace understands that this is the real killing swordsmanship, and every move is just to kill people. His time is very precious, so Ace immediately took out his broadsword and devoted himself to the practice of swordsmanship. 3 days later, Ace was able to skillfully use the 8 basic movements of swordsmanship, and the broad-backed sword swung vigorously in his hands. But Ace knew that he was only a resemblance, and he was still far from mastering it, let alone integrating these movements naturally and coherently. Wiping off his sweat, Ace prepared to continue swinging the knife. "Ace, Admiral Sutton called you over," a middle-aged sailor with curly black hair shouted. "Okay, Uncle William, I'll go right away." Ace stopped what he was doing and walked towards the captain's cabin. There are more than 8 of them on the warship. After all, to operate such a large warship, dozens of sailors are indispensable, plus ordinary sailors. There are nearly 200 people on board. And Uncle William is the orderly on board, responsible for issuing Shatton's orders. Across the deck is the captain's cabin on the warship, and Ace reached out and knocked on the door. "Come in." Shatton's familiar voice came out. After entering the door, Ace found that Drake was there. "I only called you 2 here today. Do you know why?" Seeing that the 2 shook their heads, Shatton continued to ask, "I'll ask you a question first. Do you know what domineering is?" Seeing Drake shook his head, Ace thought for a while and replied, "Domineering is the potential power that all human beings possess. This kind of power is an innate ability. It is the same as momentum and deterrence. It exists like instinct." Shatton looked at Ace in surprise. Apparently he didn't expect Ace to answer, but he nodded in approval and said, "That's right. Domineering can be roughly divided into knowledge and armed, and of course there are the legendary Overlord color. Overlord color is inherent, but the other 2 can be mastered through self-exercise." Speaking of this, Shatton clenched his fist with his right hand, and with a shock in his body, a gust of air suddenly condensed around his fist, forming a black protective layer. This is the domineering, armed color. The fist was released, and the domineering disappeared. Shatton smiled and continued to the 2. "As for the knowledge color, domineering, I think you are about to feel it." Hearing this, Ace also understood Shatton's strength. In the Navy, generals at the lieutenant level can master the 2-color domineering skillfully. And Shatton has already mastered it proficiently, which shows that his strength has reached the level of a peak major general. No wonder everyone in the base respects Shatton. But to Ace's delight, Shatton called the 2 of them over, saying such a remark was definitely not to show off his strength. To guide us to practice domineering. Sure enough, after seeing the puzzled expression on Drake's face, Shatton spoke. "The 2 of you have performed well in the physical reaction test, which is the result of using the 5 senses to the extreme." When Shatton said this, he looked at Ace specifically, and saw Ace's thoughtful expression. Then he continued, "The so-called knowledge, domineering is the 6th sense." As soon as Shatton finished speaking, Ace raised his head abruptly, his pupils shrank, as if enlightened, allowing him to fully understand the essence of knowledge. In fact, in the past few days, Ace has also been puzzled. His 5 senses seem to have reached the extreme, although he can quickly respond to things he sees and hears. But he knew it wasn't the domineering color of knowledge. After listening to Shatton's words, he realized that color of knowledge turned out to be the 6th sense. "My level is limited, and your armed color has not started at all, so I can't guide you. But your 5 senses are almost perfect. That is, you have the foundation to develop your 6th sense." Shatton seems to be very impressed by the talents of the 2 with emotion, so if you are willing, in the next few days, I will guide you to practice the knowledge color, domineering. "Thank you, instructor." Ace thanked him immediately, and pushed Drake, who was still a little confused. So Drake also immediately thanked him. From the time he lost to Ace, Drake knew that this kid would never suffer, just follow him. "Very good." Shatton took out 2 cloth strips and a wooden knife, looked at the 2 boys in front of him, and thought that he was about to vomit blood from being eaten by them before. He smiled cunningly and said, "Then first, cover your eyes with cloth strips, And when you can avoid the wooden knife in my hand without relying on your five senses, your knowledge will be practiced. For some reason, looking at the wooden knife in Shatten's hand, both of Ace shuddered. At the same time, two pirate ships slowly stopped beside a deserted island in the first half of the Great Route. The pirate ship in front was full of people, dozens of pirates were busy anchoring and sailing, while the ship behind was extremely strange, silent, exuding a gloomy atmosphere. There were only two people sitting in the captain's cabin of the first ship. The person in the lower position is short and strong, with a conspicuous big bald head, and his naked upper body is covered with hideous scars, and the most conspicuous thing is the giant machete behind him that is taller than others. At this moment, he looked at the top position with a positive expression, and said, "Gruss, I've been crazy with you for so long and killed so many civilians. If I don't get what I want by then, don't blame me for being rude." Sitting at the top is Gruss, the captain of the hanged pirates. He is 2 meters tall, with long hair like weeds, and one of his eyes has only the white of his eyes, which is so penetrating, incomparable. Ha 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 ha. Dear Austin, you just killed a few people. With your prestige as a beheader, are you still afraid of those useless Marines? Don't talk nonsense. When will the transaction partner you mentioned arrive? Now that Austin thought of this deal, he couldn't help showing a trace of disgust and apprehension. What the other party wanted was a corpse. Austin, don't worry. Let's talk about other things first. As long as you join our hanged pirates, I can give you the position of deputy captain immediately. Seeing that Austin didn't respond, Gruss didn't appear to be in a hurry, and soon a crazy smile appeared on his face. As long as the devil fruit promised by the other party is obtained this time, the two of us can join hands. Even if it is a new world, we can break through it. Make a name for yourself. When Austin heard this, there was a hint of emotion on his face. The reason why he cooperated with Gruss this time was for the devil fruit promised by the other party. In the black market, a devil fruit is worth at least 100 million Baileys, and there is no market for it. This price is enough for him to sell. Corpse for devil fruit. There is no better deal. Gruss said with a cruel smile. 500 ordinary corpses plus 10 strong ones should be enough to exchange for 2 devil fruits. When Austin heard this, he couldn't help looking through the window to the ship behind him. On that ship, except for a few sailors who were manipulating the ship, the rest were piled full of corpses. The corpses included old people and children, and the despair and pain before death still remained on their faces, all stained brown. All of this speaks of the brutality and bloodiness of the hanged pirates. 5 days later, the people sent by the other party will arrive here. Gross's words brought Austin back to his consciousness. I heard that it's a big pirate who came back from the New World, hee. Although I don't know why they want the corpse, but there are 2 devil fruits at hand. What a big deal. Well, I hope there will be no troubles these days. Austin nodded, stroked his machete, and muttered in a low voice. The recent massacre always gave him a bad feeling. But when he thought of the devil fruit beckoning to him, Austin put the thought behind him. Just killed a few people. The Great Route, the Devil's Triangle area, a sea area shrouded in thick fog. There is an island floating quietly on the sea surface. Upon closer inspection, the island turned out to be a huge 3-masted sailing ship. An island-sized sailboat. In the center of the island, there stands a huge castle in dark tones. Hee. Abu Shalom, are you ready? Go get those lovely, fresh corpses? In the center of the main hall in the castle, a huge 3-meter-high monster shrouded in shadows. After all, only the dead are the most reliable. Hee. And in the hall opposite him, there was obviously no one in sight, but a male voice suddenly came out of nowhere. Yes, my lord, the boat is ready. Go. I'll leave it to you. Come back early. I can't wait to see Hobak transform those corpses into powerful warriors. The huge figure revealed his appearance, with fiery hair, demonic appearance, mouth full of sharp teeth. As ordered. A figure was slowly released from the transparent state. It was a man with gorgeous clothes and a terrifying long hair. It was the man named Absalom. He bowed respectfully to the figure in front of him, and walked out backwards. Hall. The hall was also shrouded in shadows again. Breath. The thick cloth strips covered Ace's eyes, making him unable to perceive everything around him normally. He could only take deep breaths constantly to put himself in an ethereal state. The surrounding time seems to have slowed down, and the space seems to have frozen. Ace's mind was blank at first, but now a blurry streak suddenly appeared, striking his head from the left side. Flick to the right. With a movement of Ace's figure, he took a step sideways to the right, avoiding the blurred trace. There was a gleam of joy in my heart, and suddenly there was a bang, and my head hurt. Ouch. Ace took the cloth strip away, rubbed his head, and the opposite was Shatten holding a wooden knife. I've told you, don't get emotional ups and downs, try to stay calm, so that you can feel the changes around you. Shatten waved the wooden knife and criticized. Yes, instructor, I won't do it next time. Ace took a deep breath and replied respectfully. He just escaped the first stab, which means that Ace finally touched the edge of a little knowledge, domineering, but because he was too happy, he broke the ethereal state, and immediately suffered the second stab from Shatten. Although his head hurts a bit, Ace is very satisfied, because after touching the threshold, as long as he continues to exercise for a period of time, he will soon be able to master the domineering color of knowledge. Okay, that's it for today. You go and call the students to the deck, and you will probably arrive at your destination this afternoon. Shatten threw the wooden knife casually, and inserted it into the weapon rack beside him. Okay, then I'll go first. Ace responded, then turned and walked towards the cabin. When Ace walked away, Shatten couldn't help showing a look of shock on his face. In just 4 days, Ace actually touched the threshold of knowledge color, domineering. That is to say, in about 1 month, he can initially grasp that knowledge color, domineering. It took me a full 3 months to just touch the threshold. Maybe this is a genius. Sarton laughed at himself, but he didn't praise Ace, but pointed out Ace's shortcomings, just because he was afraid of Ace's pride. After all, no matter how good the rough jade is, it must be carefully crafted. Only teacher Zephyr is qualified to teach him. Shatten has already made up his mind. After this mission, he must recommend Ace to the second stage of the base. Ace didn't know what Shatten was thinking at this time. On the way to inform his classmates, he was carefully sorting out the gains of the past few days. 7 days is not a long time, and Ace's swordsmanship in the Navy can only be regarded as an introduction, but he has focused on practicing chopping, and anyone who wants to take it hard will regret it. More importantly, during the practice of swordsmanship, Ace thought of some ways to use fire. For Ace, the battle some time ago could only be regarded as a rivalry at best, and could not kill anyone, so he never used Ziwo. And the next battles are all life-threatening battles, and if you are not careful, you will lose your life, so Ace feels that he needs to have some ability to save his life. And some of the moves of burning fruits in the previous life can be used directly after some changes, so Ace has selected 2 moves that can be used currently. Shenhuo Shiranui. Condensate the purple flame into 2 flame spears, throw them at the enemy, penetrate the opponent's body, and the high temperature of the flame will destroy the internal organs of the opponent's body. Stacking flame slash. Ace's swordsmanship has just started, and he can't use sword energy, but he has a flash of inspiration, superimposing flames on the sword. Can't it imitate sword energy? Ace has been on the warship for the past few days, so he didn't have the goal to try out the power of these 2 moves, but he tried it in the dormitory according to his own ideas. Feeling the blazing flames on the broadsword already distorted the air slightly. Ace can be sure that he has this whole card, which is enough to compete with ordinary major generals. In terms of domineering, he has already touched the threshold of knowledge, and determined the direction of his efforts. Even if there is no special opportunity, only 1 month is enough for Ace to get started. As for the high-level use of knowledge color, listening to the voices of all things, and even foreseeing a glimmer of the future, those are not what Ace can consider now. Finally, with a thought, Ace called up his own attribute panel. Attributes. Physical fitness, school, 7 spiritual fire essence body art, the first level. Refining energy. 64/60ths. Seeing that the refining energy was full again, Ace chose to strengthen without hesitation. A warm current swept over every corner of Ace's body, and his attributes changed again. Attributes. Physical fitness, school, 8 spiritual fire essence body art, the first level. Refining energy. 4/70ths. The 7-day exercise, which was more efficient under the guidance of Shatten, made Ace's physique improve again by a small stage, and he was getting closer and closer to the peak of the school level. It seems that I will soon be able to reach the physical strength of a major general. Thinking of this, Ace couldn't help but get excited, and his footsteps became more brisk, trotting towards the accommodation area of the warship. Drake, Ian, and everyone, the deck is assembled.